Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm checking the, excuse me, I have to clear my throat right away. Um, checking in the live chat. I don't see a TikTok Shives from Dana, which is nice because if she had indeed thrown a TikTok Shives at me, I would have had words. I would have had words. Uh, but it doesn't seem like that would be necessary. Um, Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to the show. I will be happy to answer all of your questions that I possibly can in the live chat, but not until I get through my pre submitted questions by my wonderful Patreon patrons and channel members, because that is always what I devote the first section of the live stream to. So if you are with us in the chat, how did you, Dana? I would give you. I'm not. You can swear. You don't have to say ish. I guess. Well, yeah, you know, you take it upon yourself not to swear. So I suppose. But anyway, yes, I would have given you shit if you had if you had thrown a TikTok shives at me this time. But anyway, pre-submitted questions from patrons and channel members. That's coming up in the first part of the video in mere moments, and then after that, we'll watch a Stuffy short, and then after that, I will spend the rest of the show hanging out with all of you wonderful people in the live chat. So, without further ado, let's get started with the pre-submitted patron and member questions. And the first one of those comes from MW Ridra, who says, "Had a super weekend watching both My Adventures with Superman Season 3, Episode 3, and Supergirl. I liked Supergirl a lot and think the dim praise from critics I follow was perhaps overly focused on small issues. As for My Adventures with Superman, I'm so glad to have it back and wish we got more of it. I really enjoy My Adventures with Superman's version of the characters and am invested in all their shenanigans. And I also really like the balance of comedy and drama. I could have done without the musical number, though. Do you have any updated thoughts on My Adventures with Superman? Any critiques? Uh, I thought the musical number was all right. It didn't bother me. I agree with you. The episode could have gone without it. Like, it wasn't, strictly speaking, necessary, but I didn't have a huge issue with it. No serious critiques at this point. I mean, like you, I enjoy the balance of comedy and drama. I really, and I know I say this almost every time I talk about this show, but I love how funny it is. And I love how dedicated the creators are to making it a funny show. It still has, really, it has character depth, and there are episodes with serious moments and meaningful moments and a lot of pathos. And it's not all just, gag, 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 comedy, 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 but it is a really, really, really funny show. And it embraces the sort of the goofy, silly, funny side of Superman in a way that I find really appealing. So I mean, I love the show overall, and I have really enjoyed season 3 so far. And I'm enjoying how what an effortless sort of light touch that they're taking with dragging in all of this stuff from Superman comics over the years, because now they're bringing in like the Superman variations from Reign of the Superman. They're just kind of pulling them, and it's so casual and so light, and it doesn't feel weighed down by like history and backstory. They're so nimble, and so it's not only a great show to watch and a really entertaining show, it's a good example of how to adapt like something as voluminous and dense as Superman comics in a way that still feels incredibly light and accessible and not beholden to the material that it's drawing from. It's really good show. The Grumpy Monkey, how now, Steve? Have you ever wondered which of your subscribers or patrons or members can scream the loudest? Let's have a screaming competition. The winner is the first person to get a knock on the door from the cops who have gotten complaints from the participants' neighbors. I'll go first. I'm not going to scream. I don't want to blow my mic out. Anyway, your turn, 255 AD. Hey, the gauntlet has been thrown down. And speaking of screaming, Steve, following on from your Supergirl review, would you have enjoyed Lord of the Rings if Modest Mouse was on the soundtrack? I would have enjoyed Lord of the Rings marginally more. I can say with confidence. I would have enjoyed it more for the duration of that song appearing in the film. And then I would have been right back to just being bored to my, bored to death and miserable. But yes, if Modest Mouse had been on the soundtrack of any of the Lord of the Rings films, that would have been an improvement in my eyes. Speak of the devil, General Contact Unit Problem Child. I hate IP. I view it as a necessary evil to allow artists to make a living in capitalism. If capitalism ever ends, so should IP. I feel that way because I view IP as limiting free expression. Like, if I want to express myself by singing Born in the USA in public, it seems fucked up to me that Springsteen or anyone should have the power to stop me. As I said, it's probably a necessary evil in capitalism, but I do think limiting expression is an evil thing and should be avoided if possible. Thoughts? Um, I mean, I agree with your final thought there, but I still feel like it's fair, even in a non-capitalist society, even in a world where you don't have to worry about your art being used by someone else to profit from it without you getting any benefit or you giving any permission, because it's no longer that kind of a world. Even there, I feel like it's only right for an artist to retain some control over their own work, you know and I don't think necessarily that like it should be as draconian as if you're caught singing a song in public that you should be punished. But in terms of things like big public commercial performance and publication and use in other creative works, that sort of thing, I feel like the artist should have some say in that, at least during their own lifetime. I mean, after the artist dies, then let's have a rule that says, after the artist dies, like the following calendar year, everything they've made becomes public domain. Like, we'll keep public domain day as January 1st just to keep things neat, but we'll just say, like, hey, after an artist dies, as soon as the calendar flips over to the next year, all their shit that they ever did was public domain. But during their lifetime, they should have some. I feel, even if it's not a profitable thing, just it's an artistic thing. It's just, and if they want to, and it's up to them. Like, if they can choose whether or not to enforce it. Like, if Bruce Springsteen is totally cool with you singing "Born in the USA" in public, then that's it. That's the end of the matter, right? But if he says, you know what, maybe just don't do that. I'd prefer if you didn't do that. Okay, well, then I feel like you should be bound to respect that. Um, you know, but yeah, I don't think that. I think in the absence of capitalism, in the absence of a profit motive, I do think the concept of intellectual property and copyright law would change a lot. But I still think there should be some mechanism for an artist to retain some semblance of control over their published works, at least during their own lifetime. David Colby has decided the greatest curse of this world is may Donald Trump champion your cause. Oh no, Trump is interested in helping us. Oh, what are we gonna do? Steve, if I had any creative control at all making Picard, I'd have said, what a great season. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. And then recast him with a younger actor because his brain got transferred into a robot body. This may seem like a good idea because it lets you have your main character be involved in, say, action scenes without it seeming like elder abuse, but far more importantly, it cuts Patrick Stewart out of any creative decisions whatsoever. They're all bad, Steve. I mean, that does seem to be the case. Like, I don't know precisely what creative decisions in the Picard series you can trace back to Patrick Stewart himself, but the impression I get is that, yeah, having him in the writer's room and having him not only there to toss in ideas, but him having like a producer credit so he has a certain amount of control, so that like his ideas that he tosses out could, are much more likely to find their way into the show, that was not a good thing. Right? That was not a good thing. So yeah, but I mean, generally speaking, unless the actor in question is a massive star, and all due respect to Patrick Stewart, he's not the level of star I'm thinking of. And unless the actor in question is a massive star and is also has shown themselves to be like a creative person, like they've shown an aptitude for writing or directing in addition to acting. Generally speaking, like I feel like there should be a division of labor, and like the writers do the writing and the actors do the acting. and and the actors should have freedom to interpret the script as their performance, compels them to. Like I don't think they should be handcuffed, but if like Patrick Stewart is a brilliant actor. I don't I've not seen much evidence that he is you know that he has an equivalent talent with writing or with coming up with story ideas. So yeah, I agree with you. And also, I mean, Christ, fucking what, James McAvoy is right there, and I believe he's even said that he would have been willing to play a younger version of another Patrick Stewart character. Like if they had called him to do young Picard after he had already done young Professor X, that he would have been up for it. So yeah, but no, long story short, I agree with you. An enemy spy. Thoughts arrive like butterflies. He don't know, so he chases them away. Mr. Steven who shives, whatever shiving is, you receive plenty of comments on your videos, and while many of them are from intelligent, witty, insightful, debonair, and dare I say, devilishly handsome individuals such as myself, a lot are from absolute brain-dead dipshits, racists, and people who either missed the point of the video or didn't watch at all. Please give a ranking of your top 5 least favorite categories of comment section dipshits that you regularly get in your notifications. I don't know if I can get to 5 off the top of my head, but you kind of alluded to one there. People who clearly did not watch the video. People, and specifically, like, I mean, sometimes people will just, some people, one of my least favorite comments is commenting before watching, but what are you doing? I mean, in a sense, I'm grateful for the comment because YouTube counts that toward engagement, and like any comment helps the video find a larger audience. So like in just a ruthlessly like, capitalistic sense, I guess, thank you for your inane, pointless comment because it does the video some good. But like, if you're gonna like, I don't, if you haven't watched the video, why would you even want to comment? Like, I can't get my head around that. Like, you didn't even watch it, so what are you responding to? And a lot of people are just responding to the title. Especially if it's like a Trek Actually video and the title is a question, they just jump right in before they've even watched the video and answer the question. And sometimes their answer pertains to stuff that I say in the video, either positively or negatively, and it kind of renders what they have to say redundant or pointless or illegitimate in some way. And it's like, if you would have watched the video before you felt compelled to throw your fucking 2 cents in, maybe you would have had something a little more insightful to offer. But so that's one. People who comment before they've watched the video. People who apparently have watched the video but weren't paying attention and either ask questions or argue about stuff or accuse me of something that is covered in the video that they didn't pay attention to and they missed. That's one. What's another one? For the Trek Actually videos, people who bring up shit that was maybe relevant to the point, but that I didn't mention either because I just didn't think it was that interesting, or I didn't want to make like a 4-hour video that was just me listing shit, because I don't make list videos. I make video essays where I make, hopefully well-written arguments, agree or disagree, but well-written arguments about whatever the topic is. And it's not my goal to just make a video that lists every single fucking example of whatever this thing is from every Star Trek show. That's boring as fuck. And I'm not interested in doing that. But apparently there are people who watch the videos and expect that. And they're like, oh, but what about the time the Romulans did this? And what about this episode and this episode? And like, yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, and sometimes there will be a legitimate catch. Like sometimes someone will, and I'll often acknowledge these in my comment response videos. Sometimes someone will bring up like an example that maybe I did legitimately forget, or that I do think would have worked in the video, and I do wish that I had acknowledged in some way. And I like those comments, but more often than not, it's, what about the time in season 2, episode 4 of Enterprise, where for a split second Scott Bakula blinked and it was like, that's not what this is. Anyway, I think that's 3. I told you I wouldn't get to 5. I would spend all night doing that. Um, William Tucker, no question this week. Enjoy some time off. Oh, cool. Thanks. Bye, everybody. No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that while leaving the stream on. Anyway, it's a nice thought, William. Thank you. Ben Allen, who's your favorite legacy superhero? Meaning a character who takes up the mantle of an older hero in homage to them. Oh, that's a good one. I mean, you could do it with like multiple versions of the Flash, couldn't you? Because the Barry Allen Flash was done, picked up the mantle of Jay Garrick, the Golden Age Flash, and then Barry was the Flash for like, 30 years. And then his former sidekick, Wally West, picked up the mantle and he became the Flash. And he was the Flash for like 20 years before they brought Barry back. So you could do it with multiple versions of the Flash. I mean, Dick Grayson has temporarily taken over for Bruce Wayne as Batman a couple of times, and those runs have always been interesting. Sometimes outright good. As a child of the '90s, I do still have a soft spot. Speaking of Batman, for Jean-Paul Valley, Azrael taking over as Batman as part of the Nightfall saga. I know there were extremely mixed feelings about that, but like as a as a contained storyline. Like he wasn't going to be Batman forever. It was part of that story, and I have fond memories looking back on that. Um, and I'm sure there are other examples, but those are the ones that come like in me. I guess you could say Green Lantern, because there have been multiple Green Lanterns and they've all been at least pretty decent. Um, Steph the Star Surfer. There was a time when a movie had a bankable star. You could pretty much trust that the movie was going to be, if not great, at least good enough. I don't think that is true anymore. For me, I remember dropping this delusion when I saw Robin Williams and Billy Crystal in Father's Day. From that day on, I abandoned my faith in an actor's ability to salvage a bad movie. How about you, senior movie guru? Has there been an actor that you follow through peaks and valleys? Mm. I mean, Robin Williams is a good example. There's not just Father's Day, which I agree is just a terrible movie, and really leans hard on the rapport of Billy Crystal and Robin Williams to kind of lift up the bad material. And it's just, I mean, Robin Williams is doing shtick from his stand-up act in it. Like that's how that's how underwritten that movie is. It's like, Robin, just do some shit. And he's just literally doing shit from his stand-up act. Um, but yeah, I mean, Robin Williams, he also was in a really terrible movie called RV. That again, it's like, man, Robin Williams is doing some heavy lifting in this. Um, what else? I mean, I've never been a huge fan. I know Jason likes it, but I've never been a huge fan of the Popeye movie. I mean, it's all right. It's not like it's not quite as bad as its reputation suggests, but I wasn't like a massive fan of it. What's another actor who I have seen, like a good actor who I've seen in bad stuff? Oh God, John Travolta. There's a great example. John Travolta. If you just go to see a movie or watch a movie on streaming or something, and all you know is John Travolta's in it, and here's the thing, from any point in his career, it really is like a total crapshoot. You have no idea if you're about to see a great entertaining movie or you're about to see one of the worst movies you've ever fucking seen, because throughout his entire career there's those peaks and valleys with Travolta where it's like, oh, it's Pulp Fiction, oh, it's Get Shorty, or oh, it's Look Who's Talking To. you know or Gotti, or some of the shit he's been churning out lately. Like it's just, you don't know. You don't know. Um, the Noam Chomsky. Are there any writing rules you eschew? By this I mean limited or banning adverbs, etc. Not really. I'm actually for the. I mean, there are specific instances if I'm writing something where I will be cognizant of the fact that I am breaking a traditional rule, and I'll be like, yeah, but I'm doing it anyway because that's the right thing to do in this instance. But generally speaking, I'm grateful for the rules, not because I think they should be, blindly followed, but because they provide a nice sort of standard and starting point and a nice sort of framework to start from. Then once you are a good enough writer or a confident enough writer at any rate, you can sort of depart from that structure when you feel like you need to for the sake of whatever you're doing. But no, I mean, I still have a copy of of the Elements of Style, the Strunk and White. I have it over on one of the piles of books next to my bed. I mean, I don't read it that regularly, but it's there, and I value its writing advice, its stylistic advice very highly. Um, so no, I'm not really. I can't really. I'll tell you one. There's a kind of old fashioned. Uh, there's an old fashioned writing rule, and it's not old fashioned if you're talking about formal writing, like if you're writing a paper or something, or you're writing something for school or any kind of formal work. Um, it's a rule that don't start a sentence with and. You know, don't start a sentence with and. And I think in formal writing, that is still a rule that you should follow. But if you're writing a short story or you're writing like an informal essay, or in my case, usually what I'm writing is a script for a video, I start sentences with and all the time. It's just a rhetorical device. It's part of my voice. It's part of the way I talk and the way I tell stories. I do it a lot. And so I write that way. And I am not bothered by breaking that quote unquote rule at all. If I were writing something a lot more formal or official, then I would be more careful about that. But for most of the writing I do, or if you're working on, like a piece of fiction or something, I'm not that worried about it. But I guess don't start a sentence with and is a rule that I break a lot. Cast Iron Chaos, tomorrow we celebrate our independence from a king. Now this is no longer true, and we have a king. A corrupt king, guilty of every major crime you can think of, who has done all that he can to hurt us and enrich himself. There's still hope we can survive this era of hate, even though much of our hurt will take decades to repair. When the ruling class is finally ousted by the next generation, let's enjoy the fourth and do our best to help one another survive this monarchy, hoping the USA will one day rise again. Nice sentiment. I don't really have any plans for Independence Day other than just do what I usually do on a Saturday, which is shoot YouTube videos. But I probably wouldn't have been doing anything anyway because of how goddamn hot it is. Um, you know, so I have no special plans. But you know what might be a good idea, especially in light of everything and the context in which we find ourselves in the in this 250th year since the signing of the Declaration of Independence, is just take a few minutes and go back and read Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, if that's not too corny for you. If that's not too corny to do, because I've been thinking about. I mean, I think I went back and reread it recently because I've been going back and rewatching Ken Burns's Civil War documentary. And of course, the Gettysburg Address is prominently featured in that, and Sam Waterston as Lincoln delivers it. And I think after I watched that episode, I went back and I looked up the text and I read it, and I might do that again tomorrow, just to kind of remind myself of what this is all supposed to be about. And the Gettysburg Address does have a July 4th connection, because even though it was not delivered on July 4th, it was delivered um, on the site of the Battle of Gettysburg several months later at the dedication of the cemetery at Gettysburg. And the Battle of Gettysburg ended on July 3rd, and Lee's retreat from the north began on July 4th. So there is a July 4th connection to the Gettysburg Address if you're looking for. But I mean, yeah, uh, I agree. There's another question where yes, I agree. I The Brain, has there ever been a TV show or movie that changed your mind about a real world issue? Um, I don't know if changed my mind, but I know that um a lot of the in the 80s and into the 90s, there were a lot of TV shows that had very overt, like pro-environmentalist messages. There was a lot of commotion around Earth Day, and that was always like there were Earth Day specials on TV every year. And there were special episodes where, like, one of the characters would go to the beach and clean up the beach and, see like a duck covered in oil, and it would be like a big, like there were a lot of, and I think it's not like when I was a kid, I wasn't anti-environmentalism, but it definitely sold me on that being a really, really important thing, and being something that we should all care about. So I can't think of a specific episode or a specific movie that opened my eyes. It wasn't like a road to Damascus moment where I was like, oh God, we have to take care of the earth. But it was more just a recurring sort of theme in the media I consumed as a kid that reminded me, this is important, this is important, this is important. And I mean, environmentalism is just one example. There are other issues that I work that way as well. That's why I've always been grateful for those at times very preachy and very corny, very special episodes of TV shows, because they did raise my awareness as a child and a teenager about a lot of important stuff. JDC, hi Steve. Thanks for making that recording of The Great Gatsby. I really enjoyed it. Well, thank you very much. Without your talking it up, I would never have revisited a book I read in high school to see what all the fuss was about. I barely remembered it. But I recall you saying you didn't read it as a school assignment. How did you first come across the book, and what made it speak to you at that point? I think the first copy of The Great Gatsby I ever had was a worn out old paperback copy that I got at like a used book sale when I was either in high school or just out of high school. Um, there's a big annual used book sale in this area that I used to go to a lot, that I haven't been to for many years. But I think I got my first copy of The Great Gatsby there, and I just knew it by reputation. I just knew I'd heard people talk about it or read things about it, about this is like considered a classic of 20th century American literature, and I knew a little bit about some of the symbolism in it, the green light on the end of Daisy's dock, and sort of the famous imagery of it, and how renowned the the style of it was. And so I was curious, and I saw a copy of it, and I bought it, and I read it, and it was almost instantly, one of my favorite books ever. Um, so yeah, it was just a combination of seeing it at that used book sale, and knowing of it, by word of mouth, and deciding to check it out for myself. And in that case, I was very, very glad that I did. Caitlin, sports announcer. Oh my God, it's a personal record submitted on a Wednesday. Proud of you. Good job. um, I know you've mentioned buying DVDs and Blu-rays before. How much importance do you place on behind-the-scenes special features, director artist commentaries, etc.? For me, they're a huge bonus over TV or streaming. They can provide absolutely fascinating insights. I've recently found some TV shows which have 2 commentaries per episode, and I feel so blessed. P.S. Have you ever made grilled mushrooms or tomatoes with your cooked breakfast? I adore them, done in the pan after the bacon and eggs. I have not. I would try the grilled mushrooms. I'm not a huge tomatoes fan, so I probably wouldn't try the tomatoes. I mean, I can take tomatoes like mashed up as an ingredient in something. I can take tomatoes like, on a pizza or in a sauce, and I can take tomatoes as like sliced on a sandwich if it's like a burger, or even like a BLT where the tomato is a much more prominent ingredient. But generally speaking, I'm not a big tomato fan, so I probably wouldn't do the grilled tomatoes, but grilled mushroom sounds good. I have not had grilled mushrooms for breakfast, but that sounds good. Um, Done in the pan after the bacon and eggs. That, yeah, I can see how that would be really good. Um, I used to care a lot more about special features than I do now. When DVDs were first a thing, and the special features on DVDs were a big part of how discs were marketed, I mean, I would just devour special features. I would listen to or watch the special features on like everything I had. Nowadays, I'm not as excited about them. If I get like a Blu-ray or a 4K of, or even, like you said, they're available sometimes when you get a movie on streaming as well, or a show. Um, if it's a project that I'm really interested in, or it's by, filmmakers that I'm really interested in, and there's like a commentary track or a behind the scenes documentary, like I will check it out. And there's always something you can learn. Um, and like I just got Citizen Kane on 4K a few months ago. And I mean, and it's Criterion Collection, so it's got tons of special features that I haven't had a chance to dive into yet. But I think it still has among the many features it has, it still has Roger Ebert's um, commentary track for Citizen Kane, which is still one of my favorite. It might be my favorite commentary track, like from anything ever, because Ebert is my guy. He was my favorite movie critic. He was brilliant, a great writer, in addition to being a critic that I respected. And I mean, he literally taught classes on Citizen Kane, so he knows everything about that movie. And his commentary track for Citizen Kane for the Criterion Collection is fantastic. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it depends on the movie, it depends on the feature, it depends on the person doing it. Um, but I can still get excited about special features, but not nearly as much, not nearly as frequently as when I was younger and when DVDs were sort of a more, newfangled thing. Brian Baker, Steve, have you watched Spider Noir on Prime? If so, did you watch it in color or black and white? Some of the black and white shots remind me of such great noir films that I have rewatched: Citizen Kane, The Third Man, The Maltese Falcon, and To Have and Have Not. After this live event, oh, I am watching 12 Angry Men. Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, one of my favorite films. Love the Star Trek Jobs video and your review of Supergirl. Keep sticking it to the man. And for Geek, fuck capitalism. Thanks. I'm sure Geek appreciates that. Yes, I have watched Spider Noir. I really enjoyed it. I watched it in black and white, except I did one episode in color just to see what the color version was like. And I thought it was gorgeous. But they did a really good job of sort of recreating the effect of like classic 1950s Technicolor. It was really well done. But I watched almost all of it in black and white because the black and white was gorgeous, and they also did a great job with that. And when I think of film noir, even though there are some great noirs that are in color, generally speaking, when I think of film noir, I think of black and white. And they did a really great job with it. So yes, I watch it. I watch most of it in black and white. And boy, Citizen Kane, Third Man, Maltese Falcon, that's a hell of a list. And oh man, 12 Angry Men is one of those movies where like you've mentioned it, and now I'm like, man, I want to watch that. So maybe I'll watch it tonight too. Agent Meister, who likes you very much, but he is not the hell your Wales. Peldor Joy, Steve, I don't like Star Trek Picard, but there is one scene in season 1 that I kind of love. It's episode 7, where JLP and Riker are sitting on a bench on a lake in their after their reunion. The dialogue and setting are so tranquil, and for some reason, my mind automatically goes back to how the two first met during encounter at Farpoint. Captain's rank means nothing to you? When I compare the two events, I appreciate how far both characters have traveled, and I always get a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. Thoughts? No, I agree. That's probably my favorite episode of the first season of Picard, and it's because there's such a warmth between the actors. Like you can tell that Frakes and Marina Sirtis is there as well. I don't want to sell her short, but Riker and Picard kind of get the most attention. And you can tell there's just such a warmth between those actors. And it's nice to see those characters as older versions of themselves. And you get the sense that, they've stayed in touch. It's not like they haven't seen each other for 30 years. They've stayed in touch, but they don't see each other very much. And Riker's not really around anymore. He sticks to home most of the time. And it's, they haven't seen each other for a while, and they just get a chance to hang out a little bit. And yeah, there are some really, really lovely moments in that episode, and lovely human moments, that have nothing to do with Star Trek or space or, the Borg or any fucking thing. Just two human beings who have known each other for a long time, who are getting to spend some time together, old friends who respect each other and love each other and have been through some shit together, and, have a chance to give each other a hug and sit on a bench and talk about, what has passed between them and what is still to come. And yeah, that episode is the highlight of that first season for me. And Darth, happy 250th, I guess. Boy. Hey, Captain, just a personal feeling. Among the three voices, Stuffy sounds the least like you. I can still hear you when Hans or Jack speaks, but Stuffy sounds like it could be a different person. I think it's because Stuffy doesn't convey even the hint of cynicism or sarcasm that I still hear in Hans or Jack, respectively. While I do realize I am calling you cynical and sarcastic sounding, I am also praising your acting talent. How far off do you think my amateur analysis is? No, I agree. When I listen to the voices back, I hear my voice the least in Stuffy as well. Yeah. I mean, I've been doing the voices for so long that I mean, Jack just sounds like Jack to me. Like Jack doesn't sound like me, and Hans doesn't sound like me. Hans sounds like Hans. Um, but there are times, especially in what end up being discarded takes, sometimes the reason that I will throw out a take and use another one for, let's say, Hans, is because I hear myself in him too much. And sometimes when I'm recording the voices, I will do multiple takes because I keep hearing me too much. And that doesn't happen nearly as often with Stuffy. And I don't, maybe it's just because of where I go in my voice and my range with Stuffy. Maybe it's because I've been doing Stuffy's voice longer than the others. Uh, I'm not sure. Or maybe it is what you suggest, the lack of cynicism. Um, but yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think Stuffy's voice sounds the least like me. Yeah. Yeah. Good ear. Josh Mayfield, do you have any favorite comic book heroes besides Superman and Batman? I'm a diehard fan of the original Captain Marvel myself. Me too. I love Captain Marvel as I still think of him. Shazam, as more modern audiences might think of him. Um, Billy Batson. Yeah, I love Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is one of my very favorites. I love it's and especially if you go back and read those original comics. I mean, they're just so much fun. There's so much whimsy there. I mean, it's just, and the artwork is beautiful. It's just the original Captain Marvel from Fawcett Comics is tremendous. And I mean, I love Spider-Man. I mean, most of my taste in comic books, as with my taste in pretty much everything else, is pretty vanilla and middle of the road. So I don't really have any deep cuts to share with you. Um, I mean, so yeah, I mean, Spider-Man, some other characters in the Batman family, like I love Nightwing. Nightwing Dick Grayson is one of my favorite characters ever. I love Tim Drake slash the third Robin. I think he's great. But yeah, as far as like big, like headline heavy hitter type characters, yeah, other than Superman and Batman and Captain Marvel, I would have to throw Spidey in there. I do love Spidey. The angry, loud, shouty anarchist. Some random geek, in case we didn't know. I don't know if I will be in the live chat because I'm helping my mom move, or I would be on the road back home. Either way, charitylinks.page. Remember how I was let go from my last job and got a severance package of about 8.8 thousand after taxes. I now only have 1,000 in my bank account, and that includes the 618 I get a week from unemployment. Why do I have so little? Well, life under capitalism, my reckless spending habits, and I still give a lot of money to my disabled friends. Charity links. And continuing with the slightly older Some Random Geek. Yes, tomorrow is the Scare Your Pets Day, and also possibly Start Some Fires Day if people aren't careful with their fireworks given the heat. But also a significant date is later, July 9th. It will be my birthday. I will be the Douglas Adams number, 42. 5 years ago, my number was fun being the Dante Hicks number. I'm 37, but all I want for my birthday is the end of capitalism. It will happen. Capitalism won't last forever because nothing will last forever. Capitalism is keeping all my friends in poverty and is keeping them in survival mode for way, way, way too long. Well, I hope you get what you want for your birthday eventually. I would not set my heart upon it happening this year, however. But as you say, it is bound to happen one way or another eventually, but probably not in year 42. But maybe you'll get lucky. But happy birthday, my friend! In all sincerity, happy birthday. And hopefully, when you do officially click over to 42, you will learn the answer to the universe and everything, even though I didn't when I turned 42, but maybe you will. Um, Zulu Romeo, acolyte of the one true train dog, choo choo. And then look, there's a little dog and train emoji. Isn't that adorable? It's summertime, pollen's in the air. Hope you're taking care in the heat and looking after yourself. I see that the big 250 is upon us this weekend for you Americans with all the festivities out there. So, speaking of empty gigs marking pointless anniversaries of large scale social experiments controlled by the tiny hands of unstable madmen about to destroy us all, what is the most disappointing live show you've had the misfortune to pay money to see? You know what? I mean, I don't really have an answer for this because I don't really go to live shows all that often. And most of the ones that I've been to that I can remember have at least been decent. I can't remember like a notoriously terrible live show that I've been to, or after it was over, I was like, oh God. Um, I remember I went to a show, and it wasn't like a live performance, like it wasn't like a band or a comedian or anything, but there was a guy who used to do a touring thing, and maybe he still does, but he had a collection of 16 millimeter films, like vintage 16 millimeter, like industrial films and educational films and old like commercials and stuff, but on 16 millimeter. And he would have this traveling show where he would just give a little speech and talk about each clip, and he would show you clips of 16 millimeter films. And he came to the Weinberg Center in Frederick, which is about half an hour from where I live. And the Weinberg Center is this beautiful old, used to be a Tivoli movie house, and it's been renovated as like a performing arts center. And they show movies there. They show silent movies there, and they still have the original Wurlitzer organ installed, and they'll play like live, organ accompaniment for silent movies. And it's just, I mean, it's like going to church. It's wonderful. And they'll also have other stuff. And so this is like 20 years ago, I went to see this guy with his 16 millimeter film presentation. And for like the first hour or so, it was really cool and really fun and really interesting. And then it just dragged on and on and on. And it got to the point where it was like fucking, close to 11 o'clock at night. And he said, let's take an intermission and then come back and I'll show you a couple more things. And I was just like, I'm out of here. So I left during intermission because like, it was cool, but it's like, cut this down, man. Like make this a 2-hour thing. Like there's no reason this needs to be like, like 3 hours, if not longer. And that's just to intermission. Like it's just, but yeah, so that, and again, not really like a live show, but a live show where he was mostly just showing his films, but still, yeah, not a great experience, even though it started out enjoyable. Cara Hughes, hi, Steve. You made your indifference to Tolkien absolute whenever I've mentioned him. Can I ask why you hate the guy so much? I mean, is there a reason, or is it that you don't get on with him? I mean, I think you may have mentioned him. You thought he was pretentious. I know, I'm getting in trouble for this one, but this is my senseless question as I couldn't think of a good one this time, Cara. No, absolutely not. You're not, look, you're not in trouble. Jason, my best friend in the whole world, is a major Tolkien nerd. And even though I sometimes will tease him about it and will take opportunities to, lay in some cheap shots to Tolkien and Tolkien's work, to kind of give him a dig in the ribs, I don't hold it against him in the least. I respect him and love him. And, just because we have a difference in taste, it's not actually that important. And so I'll say the same thing to you. Just because you love Tolkien and I don't, you're not in trouble for asking about it. It doesn't actually affect my opinion of you at all. It's mostly, there's two things. It's that I really don't think he was that good of a writer. I just think he's a grossly overrated writer. And I also think he's a grossly over imitated writer. And I kind of resent how influential his writing has been for the last, 70 something years. Where like that whole genre of high fantasy is basically just Tolkien and a bunch of people trying to imitate Tolkien. And I deplore that whole style. I hate that style of writing where they write like they think they're writing an additional chapter to the fucking Bible. It's so full of self-importance and it's so grandiose and it's so fucking dense and heavy with made up bullshit and world building and all this fucking boring horse shit. And I just as it doesn't align with my taste for storytelling or writing or anything like that at all. So it's that, and it's resentment that he's so popular, basically. And here's another one from Kara. Second question: do you like high fantasy or low fantasy, or do you prefer detective novels or spy thrillers and you're just not a fantasy reader? I mean, you've extolled about how you love The Great Gatsby, so maybe you just love novels set in the real world. What do you think, Kara? I mean, I have never really paid a huge amount of attention to genre. You know, most of my favorite books are like, you know, what they would call literary fiction, where they are set in the real world. Um, I do like some horror, I do like some sci-fi, but generally speaking, like I don't consider myself an acolyte of any particular genre. Between high fantasy and low fantasy, I suppose I would vastly prefer low fantasy, because low fantasy, by definition, is set in something that is recognizably supposed to be mostly our world. And it's just fantasy elements are kind of the fantasy elements are the exception to the world, like you know, like a superhero story where, like, oh, you know, everything's normal, but Superman is there, right? That kind of thing. Or everything is normal, but there's, you know, a few people with magic powers, or there's a few people that are, you know, unusual or whatever, but the world itself is just our world. That's a lot more interesting to me and a lot more accessible to me. And I think because one of the reasons is because that kind of storytelling is less laden with, you know, what people compliment by calling world building, and I usually insult by calling pre-writing that they should have left off the page. You know, like, I don't care how your dumb made up society works. I'm not interested in hearing about all your pre-writing and all the world you created. I don't fucking care. Tell me a story, you know? And there's less of that in low fantasy than in high fantasy. So of the two, I suppose I would prefer low fantasy. But again, like I'm not, you know, I mean, I do like I like popular sci-fi. I like pulp sci-fi. Um, I like, you know, superhero stuff. I like westerns, not so much in terms of reading, but in terms of films and stuff. I like westerns. I mean, so there are identifiable genres that I do gravitate toward and that I do tend to enjoy. But generally speaking, I don't consider myself like, oh, I want, you know, like that science fiction that automatically attracts me. Like, that's not really how it works with me. Don Quixote. Mitch McConnell has been hospitalized for nearly 3 weeks and no one is releasing his condition. If they are willing to hide this, how long do you think they'd hide any life-threatening condition to Trump? Also, do you think there should be an age limit on the top positions in the three branches of government? Um, I mean, not my preferred solution to that problem is term limits. If you had proper term limits, then I don't think you need an age limit, because if you could only serve 2 or 3 terms of whatever office you're in, then we're not going to have a situation where somebody's been there for 50 years and they're 95 years old and they're suffering from dementia, and, you know, they should be at home under a doctor's care surrounded by their families instead of, you know, representing thousands or millions of people in a legislative body. So, I mean, I prefer to solve the problem with term limits rather than age limits. But I mean, I do think it's a problem that not, whether they eventually reach a point where they are unable to discharge their responsibilities or not. I just think it's a problem that the same people are able to occupy the same offices for that long. It's not an age thing. It's a lack of generational transition thing to me. Um, but as for how long would they, look, I don't indulge in conspiracy theories. I don't indulge in this kind of speculation. I will just say, if after Trump dies, would be a great birthday present for Lady Liberty, wouldn't it? If after Trump dies, it is revealed that his staff were hiding a bunch of really serious medical conditions from the public, that would not surprise me. I'm not going to say that's definitely happening right now. I don't know. I have no evidence. I have no insight. But if it is revealed later that that is indeed what has been happening, yeah, it would not surprise me at all. You know, and that's not good. To be clear, that's not good. Here's another one from Don Quixote. Weird Al is my favorite musician slash band, and I've seen him in concert 20 plus times since I first saw him in 1986 when he was touring with the Monkees. I'm going to see him again next month. Do you have a favorite band? And if money were no object, who would you go see? I have, it's hard for me to pick one. I mean, like you say, Weird Al. I don't have a Weird Al in that sense. I have a bunch of different ones. Like I love Bruce Springsteen. I love Billy Joel. I have the taste of a you know a vanilla middle of the road heterosexual white man. I love Bruce Springsteen. I love Billy Joel. Um, I love a lot of bands that I got into when I was in high school. You know, like the Verve Pipe or Ben Folds Five. Slightly more recently, bands that I got into in my 20s. You know, like Modest Mouse or Built to Spill. Those guys. Nico Case. I might if I could only choose one to go see a concert, it might be Nico Case. It would be cool to go see a Springsteen show because I've never been to one, and because he's even at his in his advancing years, like he still gives like just incredible, like you get your money's worth. So I'm told from a Bruce Springsteen show. So it would be cool to go see one of those, but it would be really cool to see Nico Case. So I might go with her. Yeah, maybe, but it's hard. It's really it's tough for me to pick like a single favorite. Joe McClory, I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine I haven't seen in a while about terms for the LGBTQIA plus community and if language is inadequate to describe a complex grouping simply, or if the very goal of doing so is paradoxical. That wanting to have a term that includes a vast group and pays homage to each subgroup, but keeping the term simple and snappy is noble but impossible, and whether that is a failure of language or if it is asking too much. Thoughts as a progressive English major? Uh, I kind of agree. With given how you spelled it out there, I kind of agree that it is a fool's errand to come up with a term that both describes the group generally, but also includes acknowledgement of the different subgroups and also is like a simple and easy to learn or easy to remember term. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it does seem like a very, very tough hill to climb, linguistically speaking. And really, that's why, even though I respect and use abbreviations like LGBT or LGBTQ or LGBTQIA plus, as you use in your question, um, I think those are great. And like I said, I use them. In my own writing and my own speech, like in terms of that community, I generally default to just saying the queer community because that is also a generally accepted umbrella term that includes pretty much everybody. It's trans inclusive. It refers to gay people. It refers to people all across the gender spectrum. And um, so I tend to just use the word queer for that. But that doesn't fit the terms that you're setting out, because that's, if you use that word or any word that has been, that has come to represent something like that, it's a label. And if you don't have pre-existing comprehension, you're not going to get it. Like, because queer used to be, and out of the mouths of some people still is, like that was a slur that was used to hurt people, and it's since been sort of reclaimed by people in that community, and now there is a positive usage of it. And but if you're not aware of that, if you're a little behind the times and you're not aware that people use it in a positive and more accepting sense, you might hear someone say, et cetera, et cetera, the queer community, and think that somebody's saying something insulting. So a lot of, I mean, there's like, that's just part of language. Like there's this, language allows us to communicate, but there's also a requirement that for a lot of language to work, you need to have a pre-existing comprehension of words and context and what the point that is attempting to be made is. And so you run into some trouble with that. But I feel like that's as close as we're going to get. And I think it's a limitation of language, but it's not that it's an effort not worth making. You know, I do think it's important to try and continually update our vocabulary and our understanding, and try to be as sensitive and inclusive as we can be, of as various groups continue to grow and evolve, and their understanding of themselves continues to change. Um, I think it's important to try to stay on top of that. But yeah, that sort of, you know, holy grail of the perfect term or the perfect abbreviation that accounts for the group as a whole, but also accounts for all the individual subgroups, and is also, something that's easy to say or easy to remember. Like that's a tough one. Not saying it's impossible, but that's a tough one. Isaiah, so to your is the Starfleet military question, yes, it is. Many starships carry enough weaponry to devastate an entire planet. My model AMT Ambassador class has 11 phaser banks for an exploration vessel, not to mention the other arms that we don't know about. I honestly think we see the full power of these ships on screen. These ships are nothing to mess with. Question: would you have been a rebel or a loyalist during the revolution? Oh, good question. I mean, it's another one of those where I really don't know. I could never actually know unless I was in that situation. Um, I would like to think I would have been a rebel. I would have been on the American side, because I do, even though, I mean, it's easy for me to say now because, like, well, now I live in the United States. I am an American. So, of course, I'd be on the American side, or the rebel side, what we now think of as the American side. Um, and I do think there were good reasons for supporting the revolution. But there were good reasons to be a loyalist too. I mean, yes, the British government was monarchical and authoritarian, but I mean, a lot of the people on the rebel side were also authoritarian. They just didn't like they just didn't like having to submit to an authority from, across the ocean. So it's not as cut and dry as a lot of times it's not like the elementary school version that a lot of us were taught, where, well, the British king was a despot, and he was overbearing and he was tyrannical, and the American people wanted freedom and they fought a revolution and they won their freedom. Yay. Like it's not nearly that simple. There were a lot of people on the revolutionary side who were, who did not who did not believe that all men were created equal. And in fact, if you really, if you really like nail him down, Thomas Jefferson, the man who wrote those words, did not actually believe that all men were created equal, or at least he did not live as though he believed that. He did not practice that ideal in his own life. So yeah, but no, I would like to think I would have been a rebel. Space Demonox Seed. See, this is going somewhere. So this is Space Demonox Seed. Thank you for reviving me, Shives. Tell me, might I study your YouTube creator dashboard just to familiarize myself with how things have changed? Excellent. The channel is now mine. From this humble beginning, I shall conquer all of social media. Ah, but you were clever, Shives. You stopped me. So this is your mercy? Exile to comment reply 6? Very well, but hear me out. This is not over. We shall meet again, Shives. You wonder where this is going? It's going here. Wrath of Demonox. We meet again, Shives. When you entered this comment system, you no doubt believed this was comment reply 5, but it was really comment reply 6! You thought you had seen the last of me, but now I shall have my revenge. You tried to outsmart me once before, but it is I who possess the superior intellect. It is I who will defeat you once and for all, Shives. What's this? You kept me talking just to exhaust my character limit? Shives! Nicely done. Nicely done. It's like a little play. It's like a little 2-act play that you wrote. And I appreciate it. And I want you to know that. Simon Moody. Hey, Steve. Might seem like a very obvious answer to this, but given the Ensign's log, but is your go-to when indulging in putting yourself into a fictional world a self-insert or taking the place of an existing likely major character? And does that change depending on the setting? Um, I guess I usually would be doing like a self-insert or an original character that's that I can relate to on a personal level that may not necessarily be like a Mary Sue of myself, but I guess all Mary Sues are Mary Sues of yourself, aren't they? I guess not necessarily. Maybe I don't. Anyway, um, but like an original character that I could pour a little bit of myself into. Um, because yeah, I mean that's kind of part and parcel of the whole exercise. Like if you're putting yourself into the story, if you're imagining, whether it's like you're writing a fanfic or you're just indulging in fantasy and imagining for your own amusement, um, like putting yourself into the story is putting yourself into the story, you know. And yeah, I mean, I will say the Ensign's log for me would not be nearly as fun to do if we were playing established characters versus versus characters that we came up with ourselves. I have a frog in my throat tonight. I apologize. Because there's something just so much more enjoyable about being able to create yourself or an original character that is like yourself in some way or that is at least your own creation, and then just kind of going in and wrecking shop. Like there's just something fun about that. And again, even if it's just in your own imagination. um so yeah, because like as much as I can relate to my favorite characters in many ways, and in certain situations I can relate to my favorite characters, but it's really hard for me to think of a character in like a story that I really love where I feel like that's me. You know, like somebody mentioned The Great Gatsby earlier. Um, a couple people mentioned The Great Gatsby earlier, actually. Like, there's nobody in The Great Gatsby who I feel like that's me. There are times when I do really relate to Nick. There are times when I do really relate to Gatsby. There are times when I relate to Daisy, you know? Thankfully, I don't really relate to Tom that much. I think Tom is kind of, I understand him on an intellectual level and a literary level, but I don't really relate to him directly, which I think is good and speaks well for me. um, but I relate to those characters in different ways, and sometimes very, very strongly and in a very emotionally resonant way. But I never feel like they're me. Like I don't feel like Nick is me. I don't feel like Gatsby is me. Um, so yeah, and that's the same with other things too. Like I relate really strongly to a lot of characters, but there's no one I can think of where I'm like, oh God, it's like he's just like me, in every way. It's almost like that's me in that story. So yeah, I would imagine myself or a version of myself that I created. Air One Fire, who almost forgot. Well, that's okay because you got in ahead of quite a few people, as you're about to see. I almost forgot. Can't stay. Too sleepy to think of question. Best wishes. What are your thoughts on Jesus? Just a nice, simple question. That's a good question, I think. Like what he spoke about in the Bible and what he taught. I sometimes think where to find hope for gestures broadly, and he seems like as good a place as any. Thanks and best wishes. Mwah. That was a kiss. It's 11 p.m., and I feel like my brain is tied. Okay. What has happened to me over the last couple months? Did Jesus touch my heart and that's how my life changed? Maybe. I don't know. Um, I mentioned Thomas Jefferson earlier disparagingly and deservedly. But here, I'll pay him a compliment now. The Jesus that you read about in the Thomas Jefferson Bible is probably my favorite Jesus, because for anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, Thomas Jefferson uh, edited his own version of the New Testament. And he literally, like, it's been since been published and you can buy it and read it. But he actually had a book that he took a razor blade and he cut out from a Bible, a New Testament. He cut out the passages that he wanted to keep that he felt like had more likely than not actually happened, that were not embellished by legend and myth. Um, and he put together like just a single narrative from the various accounts and all the assorted gospels of the life of Jesus, and it leaves out any overtly supernatural stuff. So there's no like explicit miracles, and there's no resurrection. It ends with the crucifixion of Jesus and his death on the cross and the rolling of the stone in front of the tomb. Like that's the end of Jefferson's version of the account, and it has a lot of Jesus's teachings and a lot of his his most humane and like compassionate teachings. And there is a lot of the philosophy of Jesus as it is depicted in the New Testament. I have no idea if anybody ever actually said any of those things, or if the historical Jesus, if there was one, was anything like he is depicted in the New Testament. I don't think we will ever know that. But the character of Jesus in the New Testament um, does have some very nice things to say. And if you disregard some of the shittier things he said or did, that forms the basis for a very nice morality and a very nice sort of ethical and humanistic framework. Um, I still think, and this is from A Parable of Jesus, I think one of the most beautiful ideas in the Bible, which is not original to the Bible. Most of the good ideas in the Bible are not original to the Bible, but you can find expression of them in the Bible, and very beautiful expression, especially in the King James. But it's I think it's from the book of Matthew, and it's that which you do to the that which you did to the least of these, my brethren, you did also to me. That's one of the most beautiful statements in favor of humanity and compassion and caring for the less fortunate, caring for those who are in need that I've ever heard. Like that's all the important human morals right there. Like that's because that's within the story. That's God. That's the leader. That's the ruler. That's the king. That's the creator saying to his people, because they say like, Lord, when did we never saw you? We never encountered you. We didn't do anything to you. And he says to them, that which you did to the least of these, my brethren, you did also to me. That's the powerful person saying, when you mistreated other people, you were mistreating me, and if you want to serve me and you want to do good and you want to be a good person, I will judge that by how you treat other people, and especially by how you treat the vulnerable and the people in need. That's just a beautiful idea, and an idea that we should all embrace and try to live out in our own ways in our lives. And that's the words of Jesus in the New Testament. And again, Jesus or whoever wrote that didn't make that up, but they gave it expression in that, and I'm grateful for that. So yeah, there's some good stuff. There's some bad stuff that you can use your own judgment and just ignore. But there's some good stuff in the teachings of Jesus. And again, I look at him as a character in that book. I have no idea if the real Jesus was anything like that, or even if there was a real Jesus. Some people very strongly believe that there was no historical Jesus at all. I don't know. I just know that we have no way of knowing if the real guy, if he existed, was anything like the guy in the book. So I'm just going by what the guy in the book said. Greg Gildersleeve, this is kind of related. Hey, Steve, although I consider myself a rather loose theist, I respect other views and totally agree with your dislike of folks who push their religious views on others. This led me to wonder if you have always been an atheist, or if you arrived at your views somewhere along the way. Would you care to share your non-spiritual journey? I guess it's been a while since I talked about it. And I will make it brief. It's not so much that I became an atheist at a certain point. It's more that I admitted and accepted that I was an atheist, because I was raised nominally Christian. Like, my parents were not avid churchgoers. There was a very brief interval in my childhood where we did go to church, but that didn't last very long. Church never really agreed with my dad. It's one of the things that I've always loved and respected about him, is that he's really not a, He's not an organized religion kind of guy. He's not like a church going kind of guy. He does have faith. He does believe certainly more than I do. He's much more of a believer in God than I've ever been, or at least he professes to be more of a believer in God than I've ever been. I don't know what's actually on his mind or in his heart, but he's never been a huge church guy. But we were nominally Christian. You know, we believed if there was, if presumably there was a God, and presumably it was the God of the Bible, and Jesus was his son, and Jesus was the Savior, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I got to a point in my early 20s where I just sort of realized, well, I kind of let go of Christianity in my teen years and became more of a deist because I felt like, well, that makes more sense. Like, why would there only be one true religion? Like, out of all the religions in the world, why would God say, no, that one is the true one and all the rest of them are false? That just didn't make sense to me. So I became more of a deist, which was cool because it aligned with Thomas Paine's beliefs. And Thomas Paine was my favorite founding father and still one of my favorite writers and American philosophers. He was very much a deist, and his book, The Age of Reason, was a huge influence on me, as was the writings of Voltaire, who was also a deist. But eventually I realized, I asked myself, do you really believe that there's a God, or is it just that you want there to be? And I eventually had to kind of face the fact that even though I would very much like for there to be, and even though I would especially very much like for there to be some continued existence after death, like I would love to find out that there is an afterlife and that death is not the end. That would be just the greatest news I could ever get. And I really, really want that to be true. But do I believe it? Do I have any actual reason to think that that is the truth? Unfortunately, no, I don't. So my becoming an atheist and describing myself that way was basically the process of accepting that, of saying, you know, no matter how hard I try, no matter how much I tell myself, no matter how much I want this to be true, I just don't think it is. In my heart of hearts, deep down, when I can't lie to myself, I just don't think it is. And I wish that I did. I wish that it was, but you know, so that's kind of the process. It wasn't like losing faith. It was admitting that I never truly, deep down in my heart, had faith in the first place. So, Damian Williams, I don't understand why nerds get so hung up on canon. The books gave the perfect excuse of splintered timelines, so you can pick and choose. I prefer to live in a world where Star Trek Online is canon. Alexander is dead, Martok got mad and told Kern who he was, and Janeway's actions had consequences. Species 8472 caused a war between the Fed and Klingons as revenge for her arming the Borg. And you know what I like to do is just treat everything as canon. Because I view it all as I mean, it's all fiction anyway. So I can't, to me, it's all true and it's all in the same timeline. That's how fucking crazy I am. Everything that's ever been on TV, everything that's ever been in the movies, all the books, all the comic books, the video games, everything. It's all canon and it all happened in the same timeline. You know, I guess maybe I could say, well, except for like the Star Trek Kelvin timeline, because they explicitly say this is a different timeline. But catch me on the right day and I'll say, no, fuck it. Even that's all the same shit. Fuck it. It's all the same. Fuck it. Because I don't care. And I'm just paying attention to whatever I'm watching at the time. And like, I literally don't give a shit if it contradicts anything, as long as it's good while I'm watching it. You know, but yeah, I don't get it. One of the nice thing about fiction, to me, it kind of misses the point of fiction if people try to impose the rules of reality on it. When they say like, well, you can't say that because then it contradicts this. And you know, it's fiction. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This can contradict that. In real life, you couldn't have like two things couldn't be true. They'd be contradictory, but in fiction, it doesn't matter. It's all made up anyway, you know? So there could be multiple accounts of what Captain Kirk's first mission on the Enterprise was. or you know, how Captain Kirk met Spock, or how Captain Kirk met Dr. McCoy, or what kind of adventures Captain Picard had when he was on the Stargazer, or whatever the fuck. And they could all be irreconcilable with the other. It doesn't fucking matter. They're all equally true. And they don't need, for me, they don't need to be split into different timelines because, again, that's like a reality thing. It doesn't matter. It's all made up anyway. If I want to believe that the history of the Federation was like they showed it in Star Trek Enterprise, okay, I'll believe that when I'm watching that show. If I'm reading the novel Federation, which contradicts a lot of that stuff, or contradicts a lot of like what's in Star Trek First Contact as far as Ephraim Cochrane, I accept whatever I'm reading or watching at the time. And I don't care if it contradicts other stuff because it's all fiction anyway. And that's part of the beauty of it, that it doesn't have to all fit together, you know? Okay. Russell. Hey, Steve, I was really running late today, so I will make this as simple as possible. You know how I piss and moan about my job. I've been there a long time. We're located downtown, and a lot of troublemakers come in. We manage as best as possible. Anyways, 2 weeks ago, my overnight guy reminded a person that he was banned by both me and the other manager. He calmly asked him to leave. Guy started taking swings at this employee and missed. Overnight guy threw back one punch and laid the guy out. No joke. To be continued right now. His head hit the wall, literally knocking him out for about 30 seconds. He got back up, tried again, but this time customers intervened. Cops came, and he was lodge my overnight guy's face, no charge or reprimand from the office. I tell you this example for a few reasons. There are those who think society has failed these people. No, they failed themselves. My employee, all he wants to do is his job, not to take abuse. Same goes with myself and the rest of the staff. Then there's cops without, we would be at risk. Okay. I'll just say a couple of things. I understand why you feel the way you feel. But in terms of, this customer who, took a swing at your guy, you say, society hasn't failed him. They failed themselves. You don't know the story. Like, you don't know where this guy comes from. You don't know what led up to him. You don't know if he was having some kind of mental health episode. You don't know if he's dealing with some kind of addiction problem. You don't know if he's having troubles with his family or if he's in trouble in some other way. Like, you don't know why he's acting that way. And I completely get why you would not want him in your store. I'm not saying you shouldn't have banned him from your store or you shouldn't have taken whatever action you took, but just in terms of of thinking about him and people in his situation and judging him and saying, oh, he failed himself. It's really easy to say that when it's not you. Like, you have every right to decide if someone's being disruptive and disorderly in your store and they're affecting people's safety or people's experience. Like, it's completely valid to say you have to leave. I'm on your side there. But in terms of he failed himself and society doesn't owe him anything and all, you don't know the story. And I would caution you against being so absolutist in your judgment and your dismissal of whatever this person's problems were. Because maybe you're right. Maybe he's just a dick. Maybe he's just an asshole and he was drunk, or his problems are entirely of his own making. Maybe you're right. But maybe you're not. Maybe this guy is at the end of a struggle or a journey that you have no idea about, and under his circumstances, what he was doing made sense. And again, maybe that's not the case, but you don't know. So I would caution you against being so, hard and fast, like, nah, don't tell me it was society's fault. It was his fault. He failed himself. Like, you don't know that. And you don't need to go to that point. Like, you've done your job, right? You and your you handled what you needed to handle. Like, the situation's been taken care of. You don't need to go the extra step of saying, yeah, and you know what? Fuck that guy. It's his own fault. Like, you don't. All that does is close your mind and harden your heart to people who maybe don't deserve that. That's all I'm saying. Okay, last question, and it's from Dana. And there is a photo accompaniment, which is why I was going to give Dana shit if she TikTok shived me in the chat before I started. But anyway, Dana says, "Hi, Steve. On Wednesday, Major Jason Watson of the U.S. Air Force called for Trump's impeachment on the steps of the U.S. Capitol and was arrested. Members of the public may not demonstrate there unless accompanied by a member of Congress. Al Green was originally with Watson but left. It seems clear the intent was to provoke arrest. He was released without charges, but may face military discipline for demonstrating in uniform. Wish he'd urged other vets to speak out. Thoughts?" And here's who we're talking about. This is Major Jason Watson, and as you can see, he is in uniform and he is holding a sign that says "Impeach, remove, convict." And really, who can argue with that? Um, I mean, I applaud the guy. I think it's great that he took that step, that he did risk his career and possibly being drummed out of the service, um, in order to speak out on this most important of issues to we Americans at the moment. No, I admire him greatly. And I mean, don't you think he kind of was urging other vets to speak out by doing that? I mean, I guess maybe what you mean is he could have brought other vets with him there. Like he could have gotten a larger group of people so it wasn't just him. Yeah, maybe. And I mean, maybe the next time it happens, that's what it'll be. Maybe other people will see him doing this and will think, you know what? I'm in the military. I'm in the service. I'm gonna do that too. This is that important. This is that vital. And I do hope that happens. You know, because like I mean, fucking Pete Hegseth can only call them ingrates so often. Like I was listening to NPR earlier. There was protests at a speech that Hegseth gave in Washington, I guess earlier today or yesterday or something. I'm not sure exactly when. And there were protesters like chanting and shouting at him during his speech. And he addressed them while he was talking and he called them ingrates. You know, he said, these people, that's the sound of ingrates, which is such a fucking authoritarian thing to say. Like either don't acknowledge them or say, because I mean, when Obama would get protested, he would always say like, oh, they have the right to speak. They have the right to protest. They don't have to support what we're doing. Like it's freedom of speech. It's part of the American privilege. Like Obama would sort of try to frame it as, well, it's free expression. I might not like it. I might not agree with it, but it's free expression. Pete Hegseth is like, oh, fucking ingrates, don't they appreciate what we do for them? Shouldn't they be grateful and obedient to us after all we've done for them? Like that's the attitude. And he can't, I mean, I guess he could call everybody an ingrate, but eventually it's going to get to a point where people are going to be like, okay, they can't all be ingrates. Like if we're talking specifically about people like Jason Watson, like every single member of the military who doesn't support this administration, they can't all be ingrates, right? Like eventually there's going to be a point where people start to think, I wonder what's the problem? Is the problem every single one of these service members who has protested, or is the problem closer to the top, So I hope that it does lead to that eventually. I hope that there are more extensive protests like this at some point. And that's it for the patron and member questions. Let me restart the live chat viewer here. And then after I do that, it will be time to watch a brand new Stuffy short. This is a new Stuffy and Friends short that will go up as its own standalone YouTube short on this channel tomorrow. And even though it will go up as its own standalone YouTube short on July 4th, it has nothing to do with July 4th or Independence Day, because I like to keep the Stuffy shorts kind of evergreen, So it doesn't have anything specifically to do with the 4th of July, but it will come out on the 4th of July. So it is my completely irrelevant, non sequitur way of marking the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Anyway, having said all of that, please do enjoy this brand new Stuffy and Friends short. Hey, Stuffy.
Hey, what's up?
Look what came in the mail today.
Is that?
The new phone book. Sign of the times. Not saying it's bad, not saying it's good. Sign of the times.
I suppose so. Tearing one of those in half wouldn't impress anybody.
I know, right? This used to be the way to find people or find a professional to do a job. Now, a handful of business listings, no residential listings at all. It's brand new, and yet it's a relic of another time. It's like finding a living dinosaur in your mailbox.
It's like going to the mall and finding a toy store.
It's like going to the mall and finding a mall. It doesn't look like a phone book. It looks like an issue of Highlights magazine.
Is there a Goofus and Gallant?
Yeah, right. Shit, there is one.
What? No.
Look.
Goofus flips for every new technological fad. Gallant places his trust in reliable forms of communication that have stood the test of time. That's a little sad.
And anachronistic. How old are these kids supposed to be? 10? How the fuck does Gallant even know what a landline is? Hope you like Goofus and Gallant jokes. Anyway, so it is now. I will turn now to the live chat. I got a super chat from Debbie. Thank you so much, Debbie, for your generosity as always. Debbie just says thanks for all you do. Thank you very much for all you do, Debbie. I really appreciate all of that. Let's see. Dana says that's an insult to Highlights. Calling the phone book Highlights magazine is an insult to Highlights. You know what Greg says some places still have phone. Oh, let me turn on Q&A. Let me turn on Q&A. Since we're doing it that way, since we took a vote. And while questions are piling up in there, I will answer some of the ones I saw in the live chat. Greg says some places still have phone books. What's funny is, like, back in the day when phone books were still a thing, like we would get a new phone book like every year. This new one, and that is like a real new phone book that I did get. Like I didn't find that somewhere. That did come to my house in the mail. But I know that's the first new phone book I've gotten since I've lived here, and I've lived here for almost 6 years now. So it's no longer an annual thing. I'm not sure what the schedule is, or if like they send out a new one whenever they feel like it's been long enough. I don't know, but I know I haven't gotten a new one every year since I've been here. So yeah, but like I said or like my character said, like the Stuffy and Friends version of me says in the video, it's like a relic. It's like a fossil that was delivered to your house. It's like, whoa, remember these? You know? Oh, John, the Sears Wish book. Oh man, I do really love. You know what I miss? There's two things that are no longer really around anymore that I miss. The Sears Wish book and just toy stores in general. Just being able to walk in. I used to go to Toys R Us just to go. I wouldn't even buy anything. I mean, sometimes I would, but often I would just go to Toys R Us and just walk around. I wouldn't even buy anything. It was just nice to be in a toy store. There used to be a toy store here in Hagerstown, and there were a couple of other locations in Maryland as well, but I only knew the one in Hagerstown. And it was kind of a local institution up until I think the late 80s when it finally closed down. The late 80s or the very early 90s when it finally closed down. But it was called Juvenile Sales. And it was heaven to me. It was heaven. As a little kid who loved like He-Man and Super Friends and, Transformers and that kind of shit. Like it was going to a toy store like that. There was like a big, I think the version of it that I was familiar with, it wasn't there was like a location that was actually in Hagerstown, in town, that was smaller, but that was there for longer. So most of the people around here who remember it are like nostalgic for that Juvenile Sales. But eventually it moved slightly out of town to a former, like what had been a grocery store, and it was a much bigger space. And that's the version I remember. And so I'm nostalgic for that. But it was you know, and and of course the like the corporate version of it was Toys R Us, which I also loved, and I miss toy stores. Um, and I miss the Sears Wish book because that's how, oh, look at the new Batman figures, look at the new He-Man figures, look at the new vehicles, look at the new play sets. Like that was just, it was part of like the fun of Christmas when the Sears Wish book would arrive and you could look at all the new stuff that was coming out. Let me see what else. What have I missed while I was rambling on? Simon Moody says Stuffy Steve is canon. As I said earlier, everything is canon. Everything is canon. Some questions have piled up. Let's see. Geralta Trekkie says, did you watch Citizen Vigilante, the latest most bad Uwe Boll movie with Army Hammer? No. I will probably watch it at some point when I can get it without having to pay for it. Wink, wink. I would like to see it just out of curiosity, but if possible, I would like to do so without putting money in anybody's pocket. When I can borrow a copy from a friend, I might watch it. Cynical Optimist says, curious to hear your thoughts about Frank Herbert's Dune series. I have never read it. I have never read a single word of it. I've seen the David Lynch movie. I've not seen any of the recent movies, and I have no interest in them. It just doesn't. The only things about the Lynch movie that I liked were the Lynchy parts. Like the general story, and it just holds absolutely no interest for me at all. Oh, Caitlin, your Stuffy voice was great. No, Caitlin said, because yeah, Caitlin showed off her Stuffy voice on our most recent patrons and members hangout, and it was like, I mean, it was dead on. I thought it was really good. It was really good. Geralta Trekkie says, concerning bonus features, I love outtakes where you can see the actor's mask slip. Might we get outtakes from your videos? No, probably not. My philosophy with outtakes is I would only share them if I thought they were good or interesting, and my outtakes are never good or interesting. Like my outtakes aren't funny. My outtakes are just, oh, flub the line, let me do it again. Like there's, if I had entertaining outtakes to share, I would. And very, very rarely, like every once in a great while, I have shared like a blooper or an outtake, but I almost never do it because my outtakes just aren't entertaining. And I don't think there's a lot of value in that inherently. Like if it's entertaining, if it's funny, yeah, let people see it. They'll get a kick out of it. But I don't think there's any value inherently in showing outtakes to the audience. Somebody once compared it to like, and this is a really pretentious way to say it, but like, when Michelangelo carved a statue out of marble, he didn't save the bits of marble that he chiseled off. Like there's no value to them. Those are the discarded pieces that he needed to get rid of to get the finished product. And bloopers and outtakes are kind of the same thing. To get to the finished product that I wanted the audience to see, I had to fuck up a bunch, and that's what that is. There's no reason for anybody to see that. Michael Hanline says, what's your favorite My Adventures with Superman version of a villain so far? Oh, man. I do really like their version of Brainiac, I have to say. I do really like their version of Brainiac. Zoxion says, do you think Trump diminishing our standing in the world may be good for the world in the long run, even good for the U.S. in time? I would say yes and yes. Definitely good for the world. I mean, this is not the way I would like to see it happen. The way Trump is doing it, I don't think is good because it's incredibly damaging, like withdrawing USAID and damaging our alliances with other countries and destabilizing, other alliances and countries around the world. Like the way Trump is doing it is awful and inexcusable. But the general idea of the United States maybe not, getting its dick on everybody's plate quite so often, that's a good thing. us kind of taking a more well proportioned role in world affairs instead of just trying to absolutely dominate everything, I think would be a good thing for us and for everybody else. And I certainly hope that that's the case. Steve Schmeling says, I suppose Masters of the Universe has been out long enough. I love that everyone learned what Adam called them and no one corrected him. Fisto never said, I'm Gary. Ram Man wasn't like, it's pronounced Ramon. Yeah, I like that too. There's a line near the end where when they're all kind of standing around and the other, like the sort of supporting characters, are off to the side, and it's just Man at Arms and Tila and Adam standing, amongst themselves. And Tila points at Mechanic, and she doesn't call him by name. She says, what was your name for that guy? And she just points at that guy, who is a guy that she has known like for her whole life and has been a part of their group like for decades. She definitely knows his name. But she doesn't say, what did you call Mark over there? She says, what did you call that guy? And he says, oh, that's Mechanic. I really, really like that. Geraldo Trekkie says, what do you think of this one Batman comic arc where Batman and Catwoman are about to tie the knot and it all happened in his head? I don't know if I've read that specific arc. If it's recent, I definitely haven't read it because I haven't been keeping up with the recent comics. But I mean, actually, it sounds kind of like a Silver Age thing, like an imaginary story. I mean, I don't know if I would want Batman and Catwoman to be married like as like a regular thing, as an ongoing thing. But it, depending on how it's done, it could be a fun idea. Oh, Philip Kehoe, funny movies that are not comedies. There Will Be Blood inspired this question. Midsummer has some Schadenfreude style laughs. Any you can think of, Steve? Non-comedies that are really funny. I mean, yeah, there are God, there are lots of examples that I just can't think of at the time. I'm just drawing a complete blank. But I will second your motion on There Will Be Blood. One of my favorite things about There Will Be Blood is how at the end, that final sequence between Eli and Daniel in the bowling alley at his house, like literally right at the end, it's like a Looney Tunes cartoon. Like it's such a great, one of my favorite films. It's such a great, like serious, really fucking amazing, but very, very heavy kind of, cinematic movie. And then it becomes a fucking cartoon at the end. But it works. Like it's so great. I love it so much. Caitlin says, if you like tomatoes in a stew or finely cut and not super juicy, you might like my grilled tomatoes. I cut out the seeds and juice and grill them until they're pretty scorched, almost like sun dried. I could probably go for that. Joel Trekkie, that's a good point. DVD special features they get more boring if you ask me, and the specials get short and too. Well, and also, I know there was a point where they just kind of stopped doing them for more new DVDs or Blu-rays. Just they didn't really, unless it was like a special edition that was being released. They just didn't have special features very much. Isaiah says we don't get to see the full power of the ships on screen. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we really. You never really see like a Federation ship destroy an entire planet. They just you're just told that they have that capability. 285 AD says, in My Adventures with Superman, what did you think of them having a scene set in a store where Kara and Lois were looking at CDs? It struck me as a weird anachronism. I just took it as like a stylistic thing, or maybe there is. Those music stores do still exist. They're mostly specialty shops now. Like they're not nearly as ubiquitous as they used to be, but you can still find them. So it was either that or it was just a stylistic thing. It's like, everybody driving old fashioned cars from the 30s and 40s in Batman, the animated series. I didn't think too much about it. It certainly didn't stick out to me. Geraldo Trekkie says, what I don't like in the first season of Picard, the unnecessary dying in the story. They do kill off a few characters, and it seems like they're just doing it for shock value. Yeah, I agree. Um, Daryl Lett says, "Okay, Steve, you forgot Carrie, starring Sissy Spacek." I'm not sure what the context is. In what context did I forget Carrie starring Sissy Spacek? Um, and no, I have not read Asterisks. Um, Simon asks, "Have I seen Game of Thrones?" I have not. I have no interest in Game of Thrones at all. Gerald Trekkie asks, "Is my hometown doing a party for the 250th?" I honestly don't know. They, there was, I presume there was probably something planned. There was probably like a fireworks show that was planned. I don't know if they're still doing it or not because of the heat. A lot of the festivities have been canceled or at least greatly scaled back because of the heat. I mean, it was 100 degrees today, and I think it's going to be comparable to that over the weekend. Zoxion says, "Ever flubbed a line in a funny way that you changed the script?" Um, Probably. I don't know if it was necessarily a flub. There have been times when I've been recording a video and something about the script, like in the moment, I discovered that something about the script didn't work and I had to come up with something else. And that's what I used. I'm sure there must have been times when I flubbed and I liked the flub better. I can't remember a specific example, but I've done so many videos that must have happened at least once. Um, Dana says, "Do you think outtakes are more likely to be interesting or funny when it's a group of people?" More likely, yes. Although still, I bet there's more of them that are unfunny than there are funny. You have to remember that just because something is funny to those of you in the room who are doing it, that doesn't mean it's going to be funny to everybody else. That's the other. You don't want it to be too self-indulgent. Like, "Oh my god, look at this hilarious outtake." And it's like something that was funny to you as you were doing it that day because you were all there together, but to someone watching, they're just like, "What? He farted. What's funny about that?" I mean, that's a bad example because somebody farting is always funny. But but yeah, I do think it's more likely if there's a group of people. Yeah. Cynical Optimist says, "Now that filming for the Batman Part 2 is underway, do you have any thoughts or hopes, things you'd like to see at this early stage?" Also related, did you see the Penguin miniseries? I saw the Penguin. I thought it was excellent. I really, really liked the Penguin miniseries. And no, I don't have any specific. I'm things that I'm curious about. I'm curious to see what they do with Harvey Dent, since apparently Harvey Dent is going to be a major character in it. Um, I'm looking forward to seeing more of the dynamic between this Batman and this Jim Gordon, because that was one of my favorite parts of the first movie. And I love Jeffrey Wright as Gordon, and I love his rapport with Pattinson's Batman. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. But generally speaking, no, I try to, wait until I see the movie and and then judge it based on what it is. But I mean, so there are things that I'm curious about. Yeah. Dorota Trekkie says, "Oh no, I already answered that one about the hometown party." John Stewart says, "Let me. Have you seen the announcements for an animated absolute Batman and a Joker centric animated series called Laugh Riot? Any thoughts?" I've seen the announcements. I'm not really interested in either one of those. I haven't read. I read the first issue of Absolute Batman, and I didn't really get it. It's not really. I know a lot of people really love it, and it's super popular. And I'm like glad for the sake of the comics art form that it seems to be selling really well. But I read it, and it just didn't attract me. So I might watch it when it comes out, just out of curiosity. But it's not something I'm super excited about. Um, Okay, Greg Gildersleeve said, "With your interest in Superman, have you followed any version of Legion of Superheroes?" Not really. Here and there, maybe a little bit, but no, not as like as a regular thing. Um, 255 AD said, "I was going to ask you how much would you hate a Trek episode explaining the rules of Parisi squares. Then I discovered Prodigy did that just now when I checked Memory Alpha. Did Prodigy explain the rules of Parisi squares? See, I must have blocked that out. I don't remember that. But yeah, no, that would be unless like the explaining of the rules was a gag, like, the rules are so insane or so complicated or whatever that like it makes a funny scene in and of itself. But like, no, I don't need to know the rules of the made up game. Actually, for me, the less I know about it, the better. Um, Wolferman Hart says, talking about comic books, do you collect them and keep them? Have you figured out if they are worth perhaps selling on eBay? No. I mean, I do have some comics, but my comics are not worth anything because when I was buying like physical comics, for the most part, I would buy the collections. I would buy the trade paperbacks because I wasn't trying to collect them for like an investment. I just wanted to read them. So the physical comics I have aren't worth anything. They're mass market trade paperbacks. Um, Alta Trekkie says, "Who's your favorite detective? Sherlock Holmes." Tom, I love this. Thomas Sullivan Magnum III. I like you using his full name. Shinichi Kudo, Haiji Hattori, Kogoro Mori, Data, Batman, Sherlock Holmes. No mention of Poirot. That's Poirot erasure. But no, my favorite Sherlock Holmes. Alta Trekkie also says, in Germany, we have a version of the Freedom of Information Act, and my government now wants to limit it. What's your opinion on the act itself? I mean, I don't know what the details of it in Germany are, but I'm a big fan of our American version. Yeah, I think there should be a method for members of the public to request certain information. Like, and there's a review process that it goes through, to protect, I guess, the most sensitive information. But no, in general, I think it's a great thing. I think it's a good idea. I'm glad that it exists. Um, Cynical Optimist says, as a Brit married to an American currently living in Canada, what are your opinions about the UK and Canada and their people, positive and negative? I have never lived or visited either place, so I can have no legitimate opinion. The impression I get is that, they both have their positives and negatives. The people in Canada seem nice. The people in the UK seem nice too, but in a slightly different way. Both of them have better healthcare systems than we have, so they've got that on us. Both of them have more reasonable forms of gun control and far less serious, you know, uh, gun violence problems than we have. So they've got that on us too. So, I mean, they all have their issues as well. I mean, obviously, the UK right now specifically is having a terrible bout with um, really virulent, vicious transphobia and xenophobia as well. And I mean, we Americans have no room to talk because we have the same affliction. But that's something that would maybe make me think twice about, like, if I wanted to relocate somewhere. That current status in the UK might make me think, I don't know if I want to go there. That's a little too close to home. That sounds a little too much like here. But no, but honestly, I've never been to either place. Certainly never lived in either place. So I can't really have an informed opinion about either Canada or the UK. Do, do, do. Geraldo Trekkie says, stumbled upon a movie by the critical drinker. A, what made him think he could do something like that? And B, when will you do an obviously better film? Um, uh, Arrogance. Arrogance, hubris. That's cultivating an overly appreciative, overly complimentary audience, so that you think just because the people who watch your videos think you're great, that therefore you have what it takes to make a film that will reach a general audience. That is what allows that to happen. And when will I do that? I mean, when's somebody going to pay for it? Like, when's somebody going to give me the budget to make a movie? I have no plans. I have no story. I have no idea. I have no intent to do that at any time soon. If I found myself in possession of enough disposable income that I felt like I could make a movie, which would include not just taking the time to write the script, but also, hiring a cast, hiring a crew, renting the necessary equipment, locking down locations where I could shoot, et cetera, et cetera. Like, if I ever got to the point where that was a feasible thing and it looked like I was actually going to be able to do that and I wanted to do that, you know, then that's when it would happen. But I have no expectation of ever doing that. Oh, Geraldo Trekkie also says, Sphexophobiac here, meaning afraid of wasps. Have you ever had a wasp's nest at your house, and how did you deal with it? Also, ever seen the Asian hornets? Are those the great big ones? Um, we had those. I don't know if it was the same species because there's gigantic hornets that I've heard a lot about recently that I think have just recently like arrived in the United States. So I don't know if it was the same species, but when I was a kid, we had a nest of fucking gigantic hornets. There was a big mound of dirt in um, my our next door neighbor's backyard. He had gotten a big bunch of dirt to use like his fill dirt in his backyard to kind of level things out, and then he just left the rest of it just there. So there was like this just big mound of dirt. Then eventually grass grew over it and stuff, and it was just there for years. And at one point, there were wasps living in it, and they were these motherfuckers. They were like an inch long, if not longer. They were massive and scary as hell if you're like a 10-year-old kid and there's like gigantic, relatively speaking, gigantic hornets living in your backyard. So that, and just a couple years ago, underneath the awning of this window right over here that you can't see, but that is, right in my room here, on the outside, not the inside, thankfully, there was a big wasp's nest. I mean, a full size, like the kind you see in the movies, like a full size big wasp's nest. I have no idea when they had time to build it because I'm always during the summer, I'm always going back and forth around there to when I mow the lawn. Like I walk past there all the time. And somehow I didn't notice this big ass wasp nest until it was that big. And I was like, oh, there's a lot of wasps flying around. That's weird. And then I looked up under the awning and I was like, oh shit, where'd that come from? It's like the size of a fucking basketball. Um, and I dealt with it by buying a couple of cans of that long distance, like, wasp spray where you can shoot it and it'll go like 20 feet away. And I waited after I got the bug spray. I waited until the sun went down and it had been dark for a little while and all the wasps had gone back into their nest and they weren't flying around anymore. And then I walked outside and I got my flashlight on my phone and turned it on so I could see where I was aiming. And I emptied the whole fucking can into the mouth of that wasp's nest and left it sit for a day or two and didn't fuck with it. And then came back to check, and I had myself an empty wasp nest and a little pile of dead wasps right underneath it. Success. And then I knocked it down and got rid of it, and that was the end of my wasp problem. Yeah, sorry, Damien. Thank you for the reminder. I'll get to the super chats. Let me try to power through these last few questions, and I'll get to the super chat. Thank you for the reminder. Caitlin says, also, I used to think that I didn't like grilled mushrooms. They were always slimy and goopy, but then I learned I just kept having them undercooked. My ones are tender and melty, often cooked with diced onion. Yeah, that sounds delicious. And yeah, mushrooms are kind of tricky sometimes. I don't like them really wet and slimy either, but if you cook a mushroom right, oh, that's good stuff. Gerald Tedrecki says, Tenet, Batman, and Charlie's Angels made me realize Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson can be funny. Unfortunately, they gave them a shit script with Twilight and with Zathura. Oh, yeah, they're both brilliant. They're both brilliant actors. Yeah, don't judge them by Twilight. No, they're both brilliant. Zulu Romeo says the first rule of Parisi Squares is you do not talk about Parisi Squares. Zoxion says, will you ever do an Elseworld style take for a world's best Batman Superman? Oh, undoubtedly. Yes, undoubtedly. I think there's at least an Elseworlds somewhere on my best Batman list. I'm not sure where. I'm not sure when I was thinking of doing it, but yes, and but no, yeah, I'm certainly not going to like not do an Elseworlds on purpose. Like I will absolutely do Elseworlds for either one of those. Don Quixote said, did you see Star Trek 4 is coming back to theaters for the anniversary, but only in the UK? Boo. If they re-released it theatrically here, I would definitely go see it. 255 AD said, should Trek writers deliberately make the rules of the made-up games inconsistent from one depiction to the next? Yes. Zula Romeo says, speaking of getting ideas above your station with being bigger than your internet platform, what's your opinion on the Nostalgia Critic, aka Doug Walker? My opinion on him is I really, really loved Dan Wilson's video, absolutely ripping him to shreds. That's my opinion on him. I've never watched his stuff. I never watched Nostalgia Critic. I never watched any of that stuff. The little snippets of it that I have seen here and there have not impressed me. He does not impress me as a content creator. He does not impress me as a critic. He does not impress me as a human being. So I have no interest in him, and I have not been a fan of his. But I did really, really like Dan Olson's video essay about him and about his video, Nostalgia Critic's video about Pink Floyd's The Wall, that was absolutely destroyed by Dan Olson. So I like that. 25 AD says, my fantasy Star Trek show would be about a 29th century ship that's sent back in time to explore all the weird stuff that's mentioned 200,000 years ago. Thoughts on that idea? I'd have to hear a story. I'm not too, I'm not, I'm not like thrilled just by that pitch. I'd have to hear something more specific. Like, I don't care about the Iconians. I don't care about stuff that happened 200,000 years ago. But you could change my mind with a good enough pitch. Sinister Intelligence says, how loud were the wasps? Sounds like something out of Apocalypse Now. No, you know what? I couldn't hear them buzzing, but I'll tell you what, I could hear them every once in a while. I could hear them like bumping into the window. Like, because when they would be flying around like the opening of the nest and they'd be going in and out, sometimes they would kind of bump into the window, and I could hear that. It wasn't like super loud. It was just a very light kind of, just the sound of a wasp just lightly bumping into a window. But I could hear that. And I guess it was low enough that I didn't notice it right away. But when I realized that it was there and I could hear it, then I noticed it a lot. But yeah, so that I heard that, but you didn't hear like a buzzing sound or anything. Should they? Oh, 255 AD said, should they do an animated version of Superman's Secret Identity? I mean, that'd be cool. I really like Secret Identity. I'd be interested to watch that. I mean, they don't have to. I'm perfectly happy with the comic book. I don't think they need to do an animated version or any other kind of adaptation. But if they did, I would check it out. Yeah. Oh, and Darl Trekkie, I've never watched Linkar either, so I can't give you I can't give you an opinion on that. Okay, let's see what the super chats are. Let's see. Damian Wilson has a member message. Says, if you like commentary tracks, check out Evil Dead 2. It is by far the best ever recorded. I don't think I've ever heard that. I'll check that out. Don Quixote with a member message says, thanks for all you do. With the Paramount Warner Brothers merger, will we get that Star Trek Justice League movie? It is inevitable. Yes. Much like Thanos, it is inevitable. Although he won't be in it yet because that's still a separate company. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say right away. I don't think they're going to go right to that. But I would say at some point in the fullness of time, I would not be shocked if they did something like that. And Harry Behemoth, thank you very much for the super chat. Says the best. Oh, I was going to mention this and then I got away from it. The best DVD commentaries were the early Kevin Smith films and the drunken commentary on Cannibal the Musical. And I heard Affleck on Armageddon is good. I have not seen the commentary on Cannibal the Musical, and I have not listened to the commentary on Armageddon. But yes, the commentaries on DVDs of Kevin Smith movies are fantastic. I agree with that completely. They are fantastic. Let's see. Some Random Geek says, ever had a great Philly cheesesteak sandwich? Indeed I have. It's a really, nothing quite like a really good Philly cheesesteak, is there? Oh, Geek, I saw the Dan Olson video about, the Mr. Beast one where he was invited to the filming of season 2 of Beast Games. Yes, and I agree. Great video. I agree. And yes, also his review of the show. I watched both of those. Those are both great. And Dan is great. Dan Olson is fantastic. Zulu Romeo says, I want to see a British version of Star Trek 4 where they go back in time to rescue whales. Oh, that's my kind of joke. Kurok says there is no contest. Michael Keaton, best Batman. Christopher Reeve, best Superman. Um, I mean, I'm not. You're entitled to your preferences, of course. I'm not going to fight you on it. I love Michael Keaton's Batman, but I think personally, I think that both Christian Bale and Robert Pattinson have surpassed him at this point. No disrespect to Keaton. Again, I love Michael Keaton, and I really like his Batman, but personally, I think he has been outdone by Christian Bale and by Robert Pattinson. Um, but I'm not going to fight on Christopher Reeve. As much as I love Corin Sweat, as much as I love Tyler Hoechlin from Superman and Lois and the Supergirl TV show, as much as I love Brandon Routh from Superman Returns, I think I think Christopher Reeve is still probably the best live action Superman. Super chat from Wolfram Hart. Thank you, my friend. Thanks for the Devil in the Dark vid. Happy 250 to the United States. I hope to catch Citizen Kane for the first time Sunday. I'm going to see it on Sunday too. For the 80th anniversary, I'm going to see it on Sunday too. I got my ticket. I'm really excited about it. I don't think I've ever seen it on the big screen. I've seen it so many times. I recently got it on 4K actually. I think I mentioned that earlier. But yeah, I'm going to see it on Sunday for the 80th anniversary re-release. I'm super excited. I'm glad you're going to see it too. And you've never seen it. You're saying you're seeing it for the first time. That's awesome. That's great. Getting to see Citizen Kane for the first time on Sunday. That's, I mean, on the big screen, presumably. That's fantastic. Dana says Kevin Conroy will always be my Batman. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get it. Well, we did a video about that several years ago, Dana, remember, where we talked about how Batman the animated series was kind of the Batman that everybody can agree on. Like even if that Batman is not your personal favorite among all the different Batmans, like that's one that pretty much everybody can say like, "Oh yeah, we can watch that." Like I dig that. You know, like it just kind of synthesizes the bits of the character that pretty much everybody who likes Batman is attracted to. So yeah, and of course he is the Batman for a lot of people, and I totally get that. Oh, Geek has to go. I'm sorry, man. Go. I'm glad you were here for as long as you were. And yeah, again, like Caitlin says, good luck with the trip home. Um, Zulu Romeo, yeah, isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? To think about that. The kid from Road to Perdition became Superman, and the kid from About a Boy became Lex Luthor. You know, you never know, do you? Yes, and Duralta Trekkie. Brandon Routh was great in Legends of Tomorrow. I agree. Um, bu- 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 bum. John Stewart says, with the criticism of the Supergirl movie just being a Guardians of the Galaxy clone, is it just a lazy put down since Guardians was reminiscent of movies like Buckaroo Banzai and Across the Eighth Dimension? Um, I think so. Yeah. Look, there's a difference between a movie being stylistically similar to another movie or tonally similar to another movie and a movie that just is like a ripoff of another movie. I do think the Supergirl movie has a lot of stylistic and tonal similarities to the Guardians movies, but at the same time, does it feel like a ripoff? Does it feel like an off-brand Guardians movie? No, absolutely not. Now, I also don't think it's as good as any of the Guardians movies, but I don't think it's like a ripoff, and I don't think that's a fair criticism to say, "Oh, it's just a Guardians movie." Like, no, that's a style, that's a tone, that's maybe even a subgenre, like sort of a pulp sci-fi superhero movie. Like there's like movie not every movie is going to be a totally unique experience. Movies are going to be similar to each other. That doesn't mean that the movie that came out later is a knockoff of the movie that came out before. So yeah, I do think that is a lazy criticism. It's certainly not a Guardians of the Galaxy clone. Um, Stephen G. Clarence says Adam West or get the fuck out. I mean, I love Adam West. I love Adam West. Brilliant Batman. Dana says, do you remember Kevin Smith waxing poetic about Laserdisc? Yes, and I also remember there was in one of his early commentaries when one of his first movies to be released on DVD with a commentary, because there's one of his movies, the DVD commentary track was just the Laserdisc commentary track. Like he recorded a Laserdisc commentary track, and then it was just released on DVD with that same track. And at the very beginning, Kevin Smith says, I want to begin by saying, fuck DVD. And then I think there was another one after that, but it was a different one where he's talking about the DVD format, and it's very tongue in cheek. And he said, like, I would never want to give anyone the impression that I didn't believe in DVD as a format, or that I thought that it was, not going to be around for very long. Like, he was kind of, sarcastically, like suggesting that he believed that DVD was kind of a bullshit format and that it wasn't going to be around very long. And I mean, it kind of was, it's still around, like it's still a popular format. It's been sort of replaced by Blu-ray, but I mean, movies still get released on DVD constantly. And a lot of people still just have DVD players and don't even have Blu-ray players, let alone 4K players. So it's been a viable format for a lot longer than I think Kevin Smith thought it would be, but it's funny to, it's funny to go back and listen to that. Harry Behemoth, says, just checked in my local theaters, not playing Citizen Kane. That's too bad. But they did play Nightmare on Elm Street 2 for Pride Month, and I went to that. Well, okay. That's a consolation prize, I guess. Well, I'm very happy that I'm getting to see Citizen Kane on Sunday. I'm very excited about that. I'm sorry that you will be deprived of that experience. Let me go back and check through some of the questions again. 255 AD says, my favorite moment in any audio commentary is a bit where two Futurama writers are debating if Bender really met God, and Matt Groening says, I just thought of it as like a cartoon. Correct thinking? Yeah, I think that's a good attitude to have. Oh, Caitlin, yeah, I didn't even realize I did that. Yeah, when I did I pause before I said her stuffy voice? Yeah, I guess it is, I didn't really think about it consciously, but I guess it is, because Stuffy is male and you're not, but you do a dead on Stuffy. I guess I wasn't consciously aware of it, but maybe I did do that. Yeah, but no, your Stuffy voice was spot on. Sinister Intelligence says, what are your thoughts on the In the Heat of the Night show? It's my favorite piece of Southern Gothic fiction. I mean, I haven't seen every episode, but I remember watching it when it was originally on, and I think my dad was a big fan of it and watched it fairly regularly. What I saw of it, I really liked. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of Carol O'Connor, and he was the one who stepped in and took on the Rod Steiger role from the movie. So I mean, I was a big fan of that because I love Carol O'Connor. Zoxion says, know of the comedian Steve Hostetter, seeing him on Sunday for the second time. I've seen his clips. I've seen his social media clips. He seems funny. And I think I follow him on social media, and he seems like a funny guy. So cool. I hope you have a good time. Yeah, I don't think I've ever watched like a full show of his, but the little pieces of him I've seen here and there, he seems like he's really funny. Duralta Trekkie says, sorry, I have a stupid question. One of the criticisms is, wow, Supergirl eats shit. And the question is that a true assessment? Yeah, because that's a joke in the movie. Like, do people actually have a problem with that? Oh, Supergirl eats shit. It's a joke in the movie. There's a joke in the movie. Yeah, it's people are, you know, most people just aren't very good or very insightful film critics, are they? Um, Caitlin says, for me, good commentaries are like film podcasts, but better because it's the people actually involved and they have interesting stuff to say. Often the director and writer disagree on symbolism. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Um, okay. Back over to the live chat. I have once again exhausted all of the questions. Here's what super chat from Kirok. Thank you again, my friend. My original question was going to be about Free Enterprise. William Shatner playing literally himself, ego and all. What were some favorite moments? It's been so long since I've seen it. I can't remember any specific favorite moments. I will say that Shatner has a pretty decent history of playing entertaining versions of himself. Like he has been willing to kind of lean in, to his more egotistical side or to his reputation of being like an egotistical asshole. Like he's been willing to self parody in some really funny ways. Um, 255 AD. Yes, are you the one where Bender meets God, or the one where it's the one where he has like the little colony of people growing on him, right? And he's like floating out in space, and eventually he encounters like a galaxy that talks to him. That's possibly God. Yeah, I remember that episode. Um, Zulu says, I hope they show the Kane in Citizen Kane. I keep hoping that they do, and they never do. And I wonder, like, is the Kane, like, is it a natural born citizen, or was it naturalized at some point? Like, what is the history of the Kane citizenship? 2D5D says, what did Kevin Smith think would replace DVD? I think originally he was still like a champion of Laserdisc, I think was the deal. That's why he said that. But I mean, I don't know if he thought that there was like, I don't know if he thought there was like another format that was already coming down the line that was going to replace it. I'm not really sure what he was thinking. Um, Stephen G. Glenard says, I don't understand why Bale's Batman was at all popular. And what's with the speech impediment? Was that a Bronze Age thing? He does overdo the voice. I will say this about Christian Bale's Batman. He does overdo the voice. I understand that he was trying to do something similar but different, because after Michael Keaton started doing this, where he's speaking kind of the low, raspy voice as Batman, that became like the Batman voice. That's what Kevin Conroy did. And that's what Val Kilmer did when he took over. Clooney didn't really do that, but that wasn't really the tone of that movie. But when Christian Bale got it, he doesn't really. Sometimes if he's just talking person to person, like if he's talking just with him and Commissioner Gordon, he does that. He does just kind of a low, like gravelly voice like Keaton did. But when he's like Batman and he's fighting bad guys, he does this. He puts a lot more air in it. I'm Batman. Where is he? And that gets a little silly, you know, and it's silly in a way that doesn't really suit the tone of the film. So I'll give you that. There are times when he overdoes it with the voice, but other than that, I really like Christian Bale's Batman. Um, and maybe part of it is also that I really like I really like The Dark Knight just as a movie, and Bale's interpretation of Batman is a central part of that movie. So I like it, because of that, because of the whole package. Um, but the more times I watch it and the more I think about it, I do think I kind of prefer Pattinson's. I really enjoy that take on the character, and he doesn't really do this. He doesn't really do the voice. Um, he just kind of speaks in like a lower voice, almost like a whisper, but he doesn't do a voice. He doesn't do a scary Batman voice. Like it's his voice, but it's just kind of softer and kind of low. And I just think that's interesting. And it's nice that, you know, he's trying to do something different, as I think Christian Bale was doing as well. It's just in his case, he went a little over the top with it. Kirok with a Kirok. I don't best Joker ever, Jack Nicholson. Agree or disagree? Hard disagree. Hard disagree. Nothing against Jack Nicholson and nothing against his Joker, which is completely fine. Like, I like Jack Nicholson and I like his Joker. He's very entertaining. But Heath Ledger ruined it for everybody. Heath Ledger's Joker, to me, is not just the best Joker. He's one of the best movie villains, period. Like, Heath Ledger's Joker is just a masterpiece of writing and acting and everything. So as much as I like Jack, and as much as I like Jack Nicholson's Joker, and as much as I admire like Cesar Romero and Mark Hamill's vocal performance as the Joker, and as curious as I am to see more of Barry Keoghan as the Joker, if he's going to play him again, either in the Batman movie or in some other movie in that series down the line, because Barry Keoghan is also a brilliant actor. And that little tiny bit of his Joker that we see in the Batman is intriguing. But no, man, Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight. To me, that's no contest. It's like, we don't even need to talk about it. It's not that he's the only good Joker. There have been other good Jokers, but Heath Ledger's Joker is in a class all by himself. He is absolutely brilliant. He is absolutely brilliant. Well, Zoxine says Jack's Joker's kind of mid given the others. To me, it's not so much that he's Jack. You know, it's mostly Jack Nicholson's standard screen persona, which is fine. And like I said, he's really good. But like, Heath Ledger is working miracles in that movie. Like, he is, the first time I saw it, I was like, how can he be this good? Like, he is so good as the Joker and just effortless. And it's one of those performances where he's doing so much. Like, he's doing so much as an actor, and yet somehow it doesn't seem like he's acting. And I love performances like that, where it's not a super subtle performance, and it's not a quiet, understated performance. And it's like the actor is definitely doing a lot. He's doing a voice, he's got makeup and hair and costume. He does these weird little ticks, his body language, that thing with his tongue where he's constantly feeling at the corners of his mouth. Like, he does so much stuff in that performance, but it all feels natural and real and of a piece with the character. And it's like, I never see him acting, but he's acting his ass off. He's doing so much, but it just feels like he's just that guy. It's incredible. No, yeah, Heath Ledger's Joker is miles ahead of any other Joker in my mind. Yeah, Caitlin, the little verbal thing. See, the way he says, there's one line that he delivers in like his scene with the gangsters. So the first time we kind of see him as the Joker after we see him a little bit with the heist at the end when he pulls the mask up. But it's the first time we see him like in the purple suit with the makeup and the hair. And it's when he's talking to the gangsters, and one of the gangsters says that he's crazy. You know, he says, you're crazy or you're insane or something. And he just goes, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. And the way he calmly but emphatically like asserts that he's not crazy. And it's almost like he's a little annoyed by the suggestion, but also he wants to get the point across. And it's a subtle little thing, but and the other thing is, like, he makes the Joker seem legitimately scary and legitimately dangerous. There are some actors, and Heath Ledger often didn't have this quality. I think Heath Ledger only really had this quality when he played the Joker. but there are some actors who just have this natural quality or have this quality frequently in their performances, that they seem dangerous. Joaquin Phoenix is one. Um, Robert Mitchum is probably the best in that category, where you watch a Robert Mitchum movie and he seems like genuinely dangerous, genuinely unpredictable, where you're like, I'm actually kind of scared of this guy. Like, I know it's just a movie. I know he's a character. I know it's on TV or on a screen and it can't hurt me, but there's something kind of scary about this guy. And I get that vibe from Heath Ledger's Joker. He seems genuinely dangerous. And that's a really special, really rare thing, like, to create, especially with a character that goofy in something as goofy and silly as a Batman movie, even a Batman movie that is done really straight and really serious, like The Dark Knight is. It's just, he's fabulous. He's fabulous. Um, Super chat from Kirok. Thank you again, buddy. The scene that stands out for me is when he fries the guy alive. Oh, we got a live one here. Or when he kills Bob, gun, bang. Go, you need a moment alone. You know, there are some great Nicholson moments. Absolutely. There are some great Nicholson moments. I'm trying to think of another one that you didn't mention that I really like. I kind of like his tone when he's telling Vicky Vale that his girlfriend Alicia threw herself out the window, and he does it in this very fake, kind of mocking, sad tone, and he has her ceramic mask that she was wearing. You know, and he gets to the end of the sad story and he kind of shrugs and goes, but you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. And he smashes it and laughs. And yeah, I'm not shit talking Jack Nicholson's Joker. I think he's terrific. I'm just saying Heath Ledger is orders of magnitude better. That's all I'm saying. uh, oh yes, yeah, Robert Mitchum, Thunder Road, absolutely, yeah. Um, yeah, Philip Kehoe, yeah, Jared Leto's Joker, easily the worst Joker. Again, like, he's like the opposite end from Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger is like the zenith, like, oh my God, could it ever be any better than that? And Jared Leto is the nadir. He's like, oh boy, this is everything about that is bad. Everything about that is wrong and miscalculated. He's just awful. Zoxion, exactly. He seems dangerous in the way that people in crisis are, when you never know when he's going to lash out, where you don't even know if he is in control. Yes, that's what it is. That's what it is with that Joker performance, with a lot of Joaquin Phoenix's performances, especially in The Master. I got that feeling from him in The Master a lot, and with a lot of Robert Mitchum performances. It's the unpredictability. It's the you and what's so great about it is, even if it's a movie you've seen before, like, in the moment, it still has that electricity. Where, like, I genuinely don't know what he's going to do next. You know, and and if it's like a person who has some malice or some ill intention, or just the ability to do some damage, like, there's a really great, a really electric and compelling and exciting sense of danger when you watch them. It's just great. It's just great. Yeah. All right, let me make sure I haven't missed any super chats. Looks like I'm good there. Let me see if I've missed any questions. I don't think. Oh, and look, the live chat just crapped out on me. Stephen Clenard says Jared Leto's was the worst. Basically, fill in the blank, and you're likely correct. Boy, ain't that the truth. I will say this. He was good as Skeletor, but the caveat to that is, it's not exactly clear how much of Skeletor is his performance and how much of it is, things that have been layered on top of his performance. You know, But the version of Skeletor in the Masters of the Universe movie that is ostensibly played by Jared Leto is very good. I will phrase it that way. Anyway, oh, let me answer this from Kane 20C says, which film do you prefer, Alien or Aliens? I love them both, but I think if I had to choose, I would choose the original. I would go with Alien. But Aliens is fantastic. Skeletor was kind of a thin role. I see what you did there. He's actually in really good shape. I mean, he's really, really in good shape. Yes, it's time to wrap up, Dana. Thank you very much. That's where I was going. Oh, did you submit 3 questions to 55D? I haven't. I didn't. It didn't show me any. I'm not seeing any that I didn't already answer. Let me go back and see. Oh no, here's a couple. Okay, I had to scroll up. It's not displaying them properly for some reason. Best Joker ever, Michael McKean. Yeah, no, Heath Ledger. Although Michael McKean was good. Do I think Patrick Stewart would make a good Joker? I'd have to see that. 255, he also says, why do you consider The Great Gatsby such a good novel when it has no aliens or superheroes in it? Right, because those are the only good stories, right? If there's no aliens or superheroes, why even bother? You know, how do you know, though? How do you know that they're not aliens or superheroes? They just choose not to reveal themselves. Okay, now I am going to start wrapping up. So let me switch over here. Hi, it's just me now. You can't see the chat anymore. I will go back and take one last pass through the live chat and the questions after I do my wrap up, and then that'll be the end. And I will. You'll all be free to go. Anyway, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for hanging out with me yet again. This was a really fun show, I thought. Thanks to all of you for your comments and your questions. And thanks especially to those of you who are Patreon patrons or channel members, because without you folks, I could not continue to do this. And not only this as far as this show, because you provide me prompting by asking awesome questions, but also just your support in terms of supporting the channel and allowing me to continue to pay my bills. I really, really appreciate you. If you would like to become a supporter of this channel, if you enjoy what I do, and if you can afford it, and whatever you think I'm worth, $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, 20, whatever, whatever you can afford and whatever you think is fair, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, or becoming a channel member right just directly through YouTube by clicking the join button right on the YouTube page. Either way, whether you become a patron or a member at any level of support, one of the things you get the option to do if you want is to ask a question ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams. And those are the questions I answer during the first hour or so of the show. And as a few people have demonstrated, again, I don't expect you to become both a patron and a member, but if you do decide to do that, I really appreciate it. And if you do decide to become both a patron and a member at the same time, then you can ask 2 questions for Ask Away. But I really appreciate it. And thank you all so much. Also, don't forget, if you enjoy my YouTube stuff, you should check out the podcasts that I am on. There's and they're a part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts, which the first of which is the Ensign's Log, which is the Star Trek themed comedy podcast that I'm on alongside my very best friend in the whole wide world, Jason Harding, and also Amanda Billings, who is not my very best friend in the world, but I like very much, and I think she's really great. And we play original characters that exist in the Star Trek universe. And we have our sort of personal adventures while canonical Star Trek stuff is happening in the background. And we are currently living and working on Deep Space Nine, and it's a ton of fun to do. And if you like Star Trek and you like funny and satirical and sort of tongue-in-cheek Star Trek stuff, I highly recommend checking out the Ensign's Log. And also, don't forget, I'm also on another podcast with Jason, which is a movie review podcast called Late Seating, where we check out classic films or culturally significant films and see if they deserve their reputation, whether it's good or bad. And speaking of bad, our most recently recorded episode is our review of the absolutely wretched disaster movie. I will just go ahead and spoil it for you now. Neither one of us liked that fucking movie. It's one of the worst movies I have ever seen. And you get to hear us talk about how much we hate it and how bad it is on the new episode of Late Seating. So I hope you enjoy that. Also, in addition to that, don't forget charitylinks.page, which is maintained by our friend Some Random Geek, who was with us earlier, but then had to leave because his phone was about to die and he's on the road. But charitylinks.page is a document with links to GoFundMe's and Ko-Fi's and various other funding mechanisms for some friends of ours who need a helping hand, who need help keeping the lights on, paying the bills. If you have a few bucks left over at the end of the month and you would like to help out someone in need and help them keep their head above water or slightly improve their situation, please consider consulting the various resources or the various connections listed in charitylinks.page and helping out some friends of ours, because as Dana always says when we push this on Wednesday for our live streams, helping people is good. And I cannot disagree with that. I cannot disagree with that. Anyway, let me take one last look through the live chat and see if there are any questions or comments that I've missed. Kitsugi Sai says he's the Great Gatsby. Obviously, that's a super name. That's true. That's his superhero name, the Great Gatsby. Philip Kehoe suggests it's secretly set on Alpha Centauri. Or maybe like a parallel Earth. Maybe it's like one of those Twilight Zone episodes where, it seems like Earth, but it turns out it was an alien planet all along. It's just uncannily like Earth, something like that. Zula Romy says, should I stay up for Colombia versus Ghana? I mean, if you're a fan, I guess. I'm not watching it, but I'm not watching any of the World Cup, so... But you obviously are a fan and you care. So yeah, why not? Fuck it. You have anything? Yeah, you're doing anything tomorrow? If not, fuck it. Stay up and watch it. I'm sorry, Dana. I credited you. I said, as Dana says. I didn't steal it. I gave you attribution. I thought it was like a Creative Commons thing. As long as I give attribution, that it's fine. Barabba Jagal says, without us, he's nothing. Stuffy would have to support him. Yeah. Stuffy supports me too much already. All right, 255 AD. Some last questions. Let me see what you got here. Let me see. The Great Gatsby is another novel I've not read, but imagined based on the title. Is it about a guy with a big top hat and cane who holds parties? Kinda, yeah. Kinda. I mean, you're leaving out a few details, but yeah, that's kind of what's going on, yeah. And let me see. That was the only question of yours I saw in the questions tab. Let me scroll up and see if I missed any in the... I think that was it. That was the only one I haven't addressed. It's the only one I am addressing anyway. Okay, Dana, I didn't steal it. I took it. Well, yes, that is inarguable. I did take it. I reappropriated it. Yes, there you go. Thank you, Caitlin. I reappropriated it for the good of the for the good of the community. All right. I am done. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you as always. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Those of you who are fellow Americans who are doing something to mark the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence tomorrow for July 4th, have fun. Please be careful. Please be mindful of the heat. Drink some water, cool off if necessary. Don't overdo it. Wear sunblock, etc., etc. And have a good weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.